Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna start a new series, What If Naruto Fell in Love with Kefla, Part 1. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Kefla snarled as she pulled on the steering wheel and pushed buttons. Out of sheer frustration, she cried, "Why the hell isn't anything working? What the hell is up with this shit?" You might wonder, what was the issue? She was on a leisurely spaceship cruise with Kale, her best friend, sister figure, visiting world after world in pursuit of fun. Kale was simply content to spend time with her sister figure, while Kefla wanted to enjoy herself. But along the way, they didn't anticipate running into problems when their spaceship broke down. Their engine blew out, and they weren't totally sure why, so it wasn't just a malfunction. They wouldn't be able to check on it to see what might have caused such an incident until they could safely land somewhere. The black-eyed Saiyan was powerless to halt the inevitable descent towards the nearby planet as it was. It looked completely hopeless for the two of them, and nothing she tried worked. She saw from the information on her screen that the planet they were over was called Earth and that a race of beings with a substance they called chakra lived there. Before glancing out the window at the planet below, Kefla muttered to herself, "Whatever the hell that is. Kale, you might wanna hold on to something. This is going to be a bumpy landing." Their ship started to descend even more quickly than it had before they entered the planet's atmosphere. Kefla gripped her chair tightly, ready to be struck. After gritting her teeth for a while, the animated Saiyan yelled, "Kale, calm yourself. We're going to be just fine. I promise," as Kale continued to scream from where she was sitting. As their ship plummeted toward the unidentified planet below, Kale's nerves were still high. "That's what you said the last time," she yelled. Indeed, they had knowledge of it, but knowledge was not the same as first-hand experience. Both women braced themselves for impact as their ship entered Earth's atmosphere and started to rock so violently that they had to hold on to the chair armrests to avoid being flung around the room. Their spaceship was trembling so violently that it seemed like it was going to explode. A warning sounded throughout the ship as they fell toward the planet's surface, alerting the two women to the fact that their ship was collapsing. The rear thruster went down first, followed by the armor plating, and finally the cockpit was all that remained. "If we die because of this, I blame you, Kefla," Kale said, glaring at her sister and best friend in all but blood. The more assertive of the two females yelled, "Noted, Kale. Brace for impact." As they got closer to the ground, the cockpit quickly hit the ground and began to tumble along, with both women feeling a little queasy from all the upheaval. Given that they were now hanging upside down in the cockpit, both women looked down from their positions when they finally stopped after the cockpit struck a rather large tree. Before staggering out of their wrecked spaceship, Kefla and Kale both fell from their seats to the ceiling. They hurled up everything they had eaten earlier that day and hurried to some nearby bushes. Both women appeared somewhat pale when they were done, but at least they were still alive. Kefla cried out, "I never, ever want to do that again." Kale said, "Agreed." Then, as a group of masked individuals abruptly surrounded them, her senses went into overdrive and she looked around anxiously. She said, hardly raising her voice above a whisper, "Who or why you?" In contrast to her companion, Kefla braced herself for battle, but before she could attack, an elderly man appeared and tried to reassure them with a warm smile. But after a moment, his grin turned to a frown, and he turned to face their destroyed spaceship. He glanced between the two women and asked inquisitively, "I don't know who you two are, but I can sense that you do not possess chakra. On top of that, we witnessed your vessel falling from the sky. Is it safe to assume that you come from beyond the stars, then? If so, I'm sure you have just as many questions for me as I have for the two of you. First though, you're looking a little pale. Come with me back to my village and we can get the two of you any medical help you may need." Cat. A purple-haired Anbu member immediately stepped forward and knelt down in front of her leader. "Yes, Hokage-sama." Hiruzen looked over his shoulder at the wreckage and at the female Anbu. "Collect whatever you can from their ruined vessel and ensure that no one comes near here. I don't want Danzo getting his hands on any alien technology. There's no telling what that rotten bastard would do with it." After saying, "As you command, Hokage-sama," Kat gestured for some of her fellow Anbu to help her with her assignment. All Kefla and Kale could do was watch as the masked people started combing through the debris of their destroyed spaceship. But after a moment, they both turned to face the elderly man and gave him a nod before trailing behind him. Kefla was unable to remain silent any longer as they got closer to the actual villager. She made the decision to inquire about the old man's intentions as she narrowed her eyes suspiciously at him. "Old-timer, why are you so willing to help us like this? What exactly do you want?" With a raised eyebrow, Hiruzen looked back and gave the Saiyan a slight smile. "Let's just say that there's something I'd like to confirm. You see, 16 years ago, a stranger arrived in my village with dark, spiky hair, quite similar to your own. He radiated power, but it was unlike anything in this world. It most definitely wasn't chakra that he possessed. Instead, it felt quite similar to your own energy. We'll talk more about this in private, however, as I don't want too many people overhearing our conversation." Kefla frowned at this, turned to face her partner Kale, and slowly nodded her head, sending a silent signal that they would talk about this discovery with the elderly man later. There was clearly something the old man didn't tell them, even though it sounded like another Saiyan had been present. Kefla gave the Sandaime Hokage a single nod to indicate that she understood. They arrived at the hospital shortly after, where they were shown to a room and examined by a few medical professionals. The more combative of the two Saiyans couldn't help but stare at Kale while they were being inspected, wondering how they would handle being stranded on this unfamiliar, alien world. It was clear that they had no intention of departing anytime soon. Observing her partner's expression, Kale nodded and gave her a small smile to let her know she was all right. She asked nervously, "See Kefla, do you think we'll be able to go back home?" Hiruzen used that time to give them the best explanation of their predicament he could before her best friend could respond. "I'm sorry, but I doubt you two will be able to leave." Hiruzen shook his head and held up a hand to silence Kefla, who was staring at him with a sour expression. "Do not misunderstand me, I have no plans to keep you two here against your will. The simple fact of the matter is that our world currently lacks the technology required to repair your ship. It's quite obvious that it's no longer in any shape to take you anywhere, and without the necessary technology, you're stuck here. I'm sorry." With a sullen expression on her face, Kefla looked down at her hands as her mouth snapped shut. "So, we're stuck here. Not exactly what I was hoping to hear, old man. What are we supposed to do then?" The old Sandaime put a hand on her shoulder and smiled politely at her. "Like I said before, there's something I'd like to discuss with the two of you. I also have something of a proposition for you both, if you'd be willing to hear me out. Once you're done here, we'll return to my office and discuss your situation." "All right." Kefla nodded slowly to indicate that she understood, then turned to face Hiruzen and gave him a small smile. "Mind waiting outside, old-timer? I'd rather not show you my unmentionables when these doctors look us over more thoroughly." Hiruzen nodded once, then turned and walked to the door, laughing softly. He gave Kale and Kefla another little smile, looking over his shoulder. He left the room after giving his Anbu his orders before departing the hospital, saying, "Once you're finished, one of my Anbu will bring you to my office. I'll be waiting." Upon returning to the room, Kefla heard sniffling and turned to face her close friend Kale, who was crying. The obstinate Saiyan sighed and tried to comfort her by speaking up. "Kale, look at me." Kefla smiled slightly at her after she was able to get her fellow Saiyan's attention. "We'll be all right, even if we're stuck here for the rest of our lives, we'll make it work. Who knows, we might just enjoy it here. You could even think of it as a long vacation if you'd like." Kale wiped away her tears, smiled slightly at her sister figure, and giggled a little. "Gee, thanks Kefla, I just hope we'll be okay." Hurriah. Later, the office of the Hokage. The more talkative of the two folded her arms across her chest and said, "All right, old-timer, we're here. What is it you wanted to discuss with us?" Kefla and her friend were now sitting across from the Hokage in his office. He ordered, "Anbu, leave us." Being careful to wait until everyone had left the room. After they were gone, he turned on the silencing seals and met Kefla's eyes. "As I said before, someone quite similar to yourselves arrived 16 years ago. He said his name was Karen. I'm not sure if that name rings any bells for you two or not, but suffice it to say, he crash-landed on this planet as well and had no way of returning home." Hiruzen sighed softly and, as if to collect his thoughts, glanced at the ceiling for a moment before meeting Kefla's gaze. "My successor, a man by the name of Minato Namikaze, offered him a home here in Konohagakure. This man, Karen, was offered a position in our armed forces, otherwise known as shinobi. Whether that means anything to you or not, it's important to know that the people of this planet are trained as assassins, infiltrators, saboteurs, the works. We hire out our services to people in need and perform such a wide variety of tasks that it's safe to compare us to mercenaries in a sense. I see. So a Saiyan, like us, went to work for your village as one of these, shinobi. That had to have been interesting. Kefla replied softly. What's your point though? The old Hokage reprimanded her gently, laughing softly and saying, if you'll be patient, I'll explain. Karen met and fell in love with a fiery woman by the name of Kushina Uzumaki. Originally, Minato-kun had taken an interest in her, but they never got together. Instead, Kushina's heart belonged to Karen. I married the two of them and was more than happy when it was revealed that Kushina was pregnant with Karen's child. She was ecstatic and couldn't wait to give birth to her son. However, tragedy struck on the night that she gave birth. With a heavy sigh, Hiruzen pulled his pipe out of a desk drawer, lit it, and took a drag. He shook his head pitifully and blew a little smoke into the air. You see, Kushina was what we call a Jinchuriki, or power of human sacrifice. There are entities on this world known as Biju, or tailed beasts. She housed the most powerful of them all, the Kyuubi. On the night of her birth, the Kyuubi escaped from the seal on her stomach and tried to destroy the village and its people. There's no way to truly kill a Biju, I'm afraid. So my successor, Minato-kun, sealed the Kyuubi within Karen's son, Naruto Uzumaki, thus making him the third Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Karen and Kushina perished on that night, protecting their newborn son from the Kyuubi's attempt to kill him. Ever since then, Naruto-kun has grown up alone, shunned by the community because of what he holds. It's interesting, however. Naruto has two energy sources within him, chakra and the unknown energy that his father, and the two of you, possess. On top of that, he's an Uzumaki and his chakra is denser than most people's. He has enormous reserves of both types of energy and has great potential. However, the people of this village do everything they can to stunt his growth. Sadly, he has been assaulted before, despite my best efforts to watch over him and keep him safe. Anyways, the reason I'm telling you all this is because I'd like for you two to train Naruto-kun in the use of this strange energy of yours. He already has a hard time with control due to his high chakra reserves, not to mention the Kyuubi's chakra messing with his control. With this other energy of his, it also interferes with his control as the two energies don't seem to blend together very well. So, seeing as you two are about the same age as the graduating class, if not a few years older, I would like to put you two on the same team as young Naruto-kun. You would have to accept the position of a genin, the lowest ranked soldiers in the shinobi corps. But this way you'd be able to learn more about the world you're now a part of, and you'd be close to someone like you. What did you call yourselves again? Kefla scratched the back of her neck and sighed. We're Saiyans, a warrior race. Most of our people fight to protect people and such, but I never really gave a damn. My crew and I, we just did whatever we wanted. But from the sounds of it, this Uzumaki kid, he's probably only a half Saiyan. Still, I'm interested in seeing just what he can do. You said he recently graduated, right? Well, if Kale's up for it, I'll join your village as one of these, shinobi, and help the kid out. We Saiyans gotta stick together, right? What do you think, Kale? Asked her sister. For a few moments, Kale found herself frowning thoughtfully before she gave Kefla a skewed smile. I suppose I'm okay with that, if you are Kefla. But I don't know how much help I'd be. In an attempt to encourage her friend, Kefla exclaimed, come on Kale. You've got more potential than I do, and you'd be great. You just gotta believe in yourself a little more, that's all. Kefla looked back at Hiruzen and nodded her head, saying, besides, this could be fun. Plus, at least we won't be on our own here. Now stop worrying and cheer up. We're in Old Timer. When do we get to meet this kid? With a small laugh, Hiruzen got up from his seat and walked around his desk, putting a gentle hand on Kefla's shoulder. Tomorrow in the academy at 7 a.m. For now, let's get you a place to stay, as I'm sure you'd like to get some rest. First though, we haven't properly introduced ourselves to one another yet. My name is Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Sandaime Hokage of Konohagakure. It's a pleasure to meet the both of you. Kefla nodded her head in agreement and smiled. Hiruzen, nice name. I'm Kefla and this is Kale. Nice to meet ya old timer. The elderly man shook his head impatiently and laughed to himself. You're never going to refer to me as Hokage-sama or even call me by name, are you? Nope, Kefla said, then burst out laughing. Now, Let's get going. I want to settle in for the night and get some rest. It's been a rough day. Hiruzen nodded his head in comprehension and was ready to guide them from the office to their new home when he had an epiphany. Before I forget, I need to give you your headbands. You're free to wear them however you'd like, but you'll need them to show that you represent the village of Konoha. Many people wear them on their heads, as you'd expect. Others, however, wear them on their biceps, as a belt, or in some other way. Explained before heading out to retrieve a couple of headbands to give them. One has a black sash, the other a blue one. He was about to ask the Saiyans to follow him when he handed them over, but then he had another idea. He looked at the two of them, palming his face and grinning a little uncomfortably. I must be getting more forgetful in my old age. I never asked you to explain this energy of yours. Kefla laughed and nodded her head before meeting Hiruzen's gaze. We use an energy called ki. It can be used for all kinds of different things such as firing blasts of ki at our enemies to allowing us to fly through the sky, or any number of different uses. Personally, I just enjoy blowing shit up sometimes with ki blasts and some of my truly big attacks. It's fun. With a beard stroke, Hiruzen remarked, the ability to fly, you say? That sounds quite useful. If only we shinobi could make use of such a potent energy source, it would make things easier on us. Still, chakra is quite the potent energy source as well, however there are some drawbacks. With a curious look on her face, Kefla asked, oh. Care to explain, old-timer? The elderly Sandaime Hokage steepled his fingers in front of his face and sat back behind his desk, nodding slowly. Well, chakra is a combination of our physical and spiritual energies. However, we have something called a chakra circulatory system. Think of it like your regular circulatory system with blood pumping along your veins and arteries, and then imagine an extra layer atop of that. Anyways, we can suffer from something called chakra exhaustion if we use up too much of our chakra or have it stolen from us in some way. And if we run out of chakra, we'll die. It is that important to our way of life. Every living being in the elemental nations has chakra, though most civilians only have enough chakra to get through their basic day-to-day lives. They never tap into their chakra and use it for any other purpose besides to continue living. Hiruzen continued, is this energy of yours, ki, the same? Kefla gave him a sardonic smile and shook her head. Nah, if we use up our ki, we won't die or anything like that. We'll just be absolutely exhausted and won't be able to do much with it until our reserves recharge. This chakra stuff, however, sounds kinda interesting. The drawbacks kinda suck, but it sounds kinda neat. I can't wait to see what you people can do with it. I bet we could have some pretty awesome fights too. The old Sarutobi nodded his head and laughed softly, then got up from his chair once more and gestured for them to follow him. You'll get to see a wide variety of techniques that chakra allows us to perform. People can spit fireballs, walk on water, any number of things using chakra. If you're that eager to fight some strong opponents, however, I wouldn't mind setting up some sparring partners for the both of you. You might be surprised at how strong some of my shinobi are. On top of that, when out on missions that take you out into the world, I'm positive you'll meet plenty of strong shinobi to fight. For now, however, let's get you two settled in. I'm sure you'll like it here. The following day, Academy. The two 16-year-old Saiyans gazed into each other's eyes before slowly nodding as Kefla and her companion were led into the Academy building. Kefla hoped in private that carrying out this action would ultimately benefit Kale. She was shy and timid, and she only felt truly at ease around her. The more assertive Saiyan wanted Kale to get over her shyness and show some courage. She would hopefully recover by facing some formidable foes and interacting with these individuals. The Anbu who was accompanying them held up a hand, signaling for them to wait a moment as they got closer to the door that led into the classroom where the recently graduated students were situated. Kale and Kefla watched as he went into the room and started talking to the instructor, who they had been told was named Iruka Yumino. Kefla put a hand on her shoulder and looked at her best friend, giving her a slight smile. Are you ready for this, Kale? We're about to meet our fellow Saiyan for the first time. I'm eager to see what he's like. How about you? Kale gave a slightly clumsy smile before nodding her head. I just hope he's nice. I'm nervous about this. What if I'm not cut out for this? Ah. You worry too much, Kale. You'll be fine. I promise that no matter what, I'll always be here for ya. As for Naruto, I'm sure he'll become a great friend. After all, he's a Saiyan too and we've gotta stick together, right? When they were called into the room, the bashful Saiyan gave a slow nod of her head and then jumped a little. She followed her more assertive partner into the room, shuffled her feet a little, and glanced around at all the newly minted genin present. She quickly spotted her fellow Saiyan sitting alone in the top row, away from his fellow graduates. Naruto's eyes were deep violet, and his hair was spiky black. He was marked with 6 whiskers, 3 on each cheek. They could both see that Naruto was slightly taller than them, despite the fact that he was seated. They saw his eyes widen slightly as he gazed at them and understood that he sensed their similarity to him. Kale smiled shyly at him, but Kefla smiled up at him, folding her arms across her chest, and he smiled back. Iruka called out to them, drawing their attention to himself. Well, would you two care to introduce yourselves to the class? Kefla nodded to the man, her smile never going away. The name's Kefla. This is Kale. Good to meet ya, she said, turning to face the class and pressing her thumb to her chest. Iruka laughed a little and said again. He looked at Naruto as he raised his hand and said, why don't you two sit next to Naruto-kun? Naruto, raise your hand so they know who you are. After saying, thanks teach. Kefla grabbed Kale's hand and accompanied her up to the front row. She forced her fellow Saiyan to take the middle seat and then sat down beside her, pushing Kale in front of her. Naruto Uzumaki, right, we've heard about you from the Hokage. I'm looking forward to seeing what you can do. Gazing at the two of them, Naruto couldn't help but smile. But he couldn't help but frown for a moment as he gazed at Kale. You okay? You're looking a little pale. Kale gave Naruto a shy glance before turning to Kefla for encouragement. Kefla sighed and made the decision to clarify. Kale's shy. Don't worry, once she gets to know you better, I'm sure she'll be more open with you. Kale, at least say hello, okay? After giving Naruto a long look, the bashful Saiyan gave him a feeble smile. Hi Naruto, and nice to meet you. The violet-eyed young man gave her a kind smile and put a soft hand on Kale's shoulder to support her. Nice to meet you Kale-chan. I hope we can be good friends. Iruka clapped his hands to draw everyone's attention before he could say anything more. But before he could say anything, a girl with pink hair spoke up. Iruka-sensei, why are these two here? They didn't graduate with us. We don't even know anything about them. After letting out a sigh, Iruka briefly glanced up at the 3 Saiyans, seemingly considering what he should say to the class. Sakura, Kefla, and Kale are special cases. Hokage-sama has permitted them to join as newly minted genin, just as you all are, he explained, speaking to Sakura, who was seated next to a young man named Sasuke Uchiha. Now, if there are no more questions, allow me to begin with team assignments. Team 1, he said. Naruto and his fellow Saiyans temporarily ignored the academy instructor as he started to enumerate the teams so they could have a brief conversation. So, you two are like me, right? I can't sense any chakra in you, but you possess an energy similar to mine. Just who are you? He murmured. Kefla gave him a sly smile before responding. You're right, we don't possess chakra. I promise we'll explain later, away from all these people. Suffice it to say, however, that we have a lot to talk about Naruto. For now, let's listen for team placements. When Iruka reached Team 7, Naruto nodded his head in comprehension and refocused. Although it was clear that he had anticipated Naruto, the class clown, to be on that team, Iruka stated, Team 7 consists of Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and Yakumo Kurama. Your sensei is Kakashi Hatake. Iruka shrugged and went on. Team 8 is Kiba Inuzuka, Hinata Hyuga, and Shino Aburame. Your sensei is Kurenai Yuhi. Team 9 is still in circulation, so moving on to Team 10. Ino Yamanaka, Shikamaru Nara, and Choji Akamichi. Your sensei is Asuma Sarutobi. Finally we have Team 11, consisting of Naruto Uzumaki, Kefla, and Kale. Your sensei is Anko Mitarashi. Hey, good luck, he said, and then chuckled. Before gathering his belongings and leaving the room, Iruka said, anyway, you're free to do as you like for the next hour. After that, make sure to be back here as your senseis will be arriving to pick all of you up. Someone came up to Kefla and Kale and started talking to Naruto before they could say anything. Man, it's a shame you ladies are stuck with Naruto, of all people. The Dobi can't even form a proper clone. Here's hoping he doesn't get you killed on your first mission out of the village. Kefla narrowed her eyes at the boy who had just spoken. He looked a little unkempt, with shaggy brown hair and red marks on his face. His pet dog was perched atop his head and gave them a single bark. She waved her hand dismissively at him and said, you shouldn't underestimate him. Naruto's got a lot of potential, unlike you. Now why don't you shoo and leave us alone? Naruto. Potential, really? Kiba snorted in amusement. Then he turned back to his teammates, saying, whatever you say, babe. When you want to get with a real man, just know I'm always available. Watching the male Inuzuka go, Kale scowled. She couldn't resist asking Naruto a question as she turned to face him. He's rather rude, isn't he? Just how do you put up with him, Naruto? Naruto shrugged his shoulders and gazed calmly into her eyes while he sighed to himself and combed his spiky black hair. I'm used to that kind of treatment by now. It's just how things are when it comes to me. People treat me like crap all the time and I've just learned to deal with it. It's best to just ignore people when they get like that. For now, let's put that aside and go someplace where we can talk in private. I'm eager to learn more about my new teammates. After giving a nod, Kefla got to her feet and gestured for her teammates to follow. She couldn't help but notice a girl watching them intently as they got closer to the door. The Saiyan woman was about to say something, but she shook her head and changed her mind after tilting her head slightly as she gazed at the girl. Rather, she walked out of the room, followed by Naruto and Kale. They eventually reached the academy building's roof and took a seat facing each other. Kefla asked inquisitively, before we begin, what was with that girl looking at us like that? Naruto shrugged his shoulders once more and rubbed the back of his head, sighing. That's Hinata Hyuga. She's had a crush on me for a while, but I'm not really sure how I should feel about her. Most likely she was just trying to size you two up and make sure you weren't planning to steal me from her. Honestly, I'm not really sure what to think of her. I'm flattered, sure, but after all the shit I've been through, I just dunno. Besides, her clan consists of a bunch of dicks that treat me like shit. I'm not interested in dealing with their crap any more than I have to already. Kefla nodded her head in comprehension and gazed into Naruto's eyes for a moment before grinning at him. So, I'm sure you have questions for us. I suppose the best place to start would be telling you that we aren't human. We're from a planet pretty far away called Sadala. We're what you'd call Saiyans, a warrior race that fights to protect other worlds and people. Of course, I don't really give a damn about any of that crap. I just love a good fight, and the stronger an opponent, the more fun I get to have. You, Naruto, are the son of a Saiyan and a human, making you the first half Saiyan I've ever met. That's why you have two different kinds of energy within you. Chakra, the energy the people of this planet have, and Ki, which is the most common type of energy you'll find out there in the great, big universe. Naturally, Naruto initially had some doubts about what he had just been told. As amusing as that sounded, he realized after giving it some thought that it made a substantial amount of sense. Thus, he folded his arms across his chest, scowled thoughtfully for a moment, and then smiled at Kefla. If you're telling me the truth, then why'd you come to this planet? 'Cause I'm damn sure you didn't know about me before you came here. Kefla shrugged her shoulders and shook her head, chuckling a little. Kale and I were on a vacation of sorts, just touring the universe really. Unfortunately, we kind of crash-landed outside the village. Needless to say, we can't exactly leave your planet anymore, so we're stuck here. The Hokage offered us a place in the village as a couple of genin, yeah. He told us about you and asked that we teach you how to use your ki. So, grats Naruto, you've got the great Kefla as your instructor in everything ki related. Naruto initially smirked at the idea of becoming stronger because of these two, but he soon scowled once more and met their eyes directly. Did the old man tell you anything about who my parents were? 'Cause I've asked him before, but he hasn't told me a damn thing. Kefla folded her arms across her chest, which had the amazing effect of slightly lifting her breasts, and said, weird. You'd think he'd have told you something about your parents. From what he told us, your father was a Saiyan named Karen. Your mom was some woman called Kushina Uzumaki. Apparently she was the second Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, which you now hold in your gut, she said, pointing to his stomach. Not sure why you were used to seal that thing, but whatever. Second Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, huh? Well damn, it's sorta like a family heirloom then, only the damn thing's a giant furball with extraordinary power at its disposal. Naruto laughed, not happy that the old man wouldn't tell me anything about them, and I'm even more pissed that he didn't tell me about the Kyuubi. I had to find out from a damn traitor called Mizuki. He used to be an instructor here before I had to kick his ass. Damn, that's harsh. You'd think the Hokage would have told you at least about the Kyuubi being stuck in your gut. I mean, it's kind of important, right? Naruto sighed, shook his head, and smiled at them. I don't really care anymore. Tell me, what's it like out there? What's Sadala like? With a smile, Kefla put an arm around Kale. Well, after an hour, for whatever reason, Team 11 was irritated by some of the other graduates and couldn't help but moan as a group. While Sakura attacked Naruto for reasons he honestly couldn't understand, Hinata was resolved to look into the two female team members. Naruto, who was now extremely irritated, yelled, "Sakura, just go away already." Sakura would have continued, scowling at him, but a tiny ball landed in the room and then exploded inwards from one of the windows, causing it to burst apart. A banner soon appeared near the front of the room. They looked at it and saw that it said, "The sexy and single Anko Mitarashi-sama." They watched in disbelief as a woman appeared in front of the banner. The woman's purple hair, akin to Shikamaru's, was held up in a pineapple style. She looked around at everyone in the room with a big smile on her face and brown, pupilless eyes. At least to Team 11 members, her outfit was intriguing. She wore a skirt that hung just above her knees and a mesh bodysuit underneath the big, tan trench coat. She wore traditional shinobi sandals on her feet and a necklace with a single snake fang hanging from it around her neck. "Alright brats, where's my team?" Before they approached, Team 11 members got up from their seats and gave Anko a sly smile. "So you're Anko-sensei, huh? We should get along well," Naruto replied. Anko's smile widened slightly as she looked at her three genin, then gestured for them to follow her. They noticed some of the other sensei coming toward the room as they were leaving. Anko gave them a friendly nod before guiding her group out of the academy and toward the dango shop, one of her favorite spots in the village. The two Saiyan women couldn't help but notice the glares directed at Naruto as they passed. Kale frowned at this, moved to Naruto's side, and gave him a cautious glance. "How can you deal with all of this? They keep glaring at you and saying things." Naruto put a soft hand on Kale's shoulder and sighed, then gave her a sorrowful smile. "I'm so used to it by now that I just don't care anymore. They hate me simply because of what I am. Yes, it used to bother me a lot, but I decided a while ago that I don't need to bother with them. If they can't accept me as a member of this village and as a person, then why should I give a shit about any of them? For a short while, I once considered doing everything I could to earn their respect and admiration, simply because I didn't like how they were treating me and I wanted things to be different. But there's really no point in it. Let them hate me, so long as they don't try anything again, I'm content to just leave them alone." As she heard what the others had to say, Kale scowled even more. She approached Naruto slowly and extended her hand to grasp his, but she quickly withdrew it because she couldn't bring herself to hold his hand. She was still a timid, shy mess, but she wanted to help him. When Kefla saw this, she grinned and decided to make fun of her friend later. They reached their destination and went into the small building before she could speak to either of her teammates. As she escorted her group to a booth, Anko smiled and sat down beside Naruto, with the two full-blooded Saiyans occupying the opposite seat. The quartet placed their orders before glancing at each other when a waiter stopped by to ask what they wanted. "All right you three, I've heard a bit about you and your situation from Hokage-sama. I've heard that you two use a different energy from what we typically use, so mind explaining in a bit more detail so I know what to expect from you?" asked Anko. After taking a deep breath and letting it out gradually, Kefla folded her arms across her chest once more and started to explain ki, its applications, and what it was in general. While Kefla was still explaining, their food was brought to their table and the four of them started to eat. Anko was smiling by the time she was done. "Damn, kinda wish I could use this ki energy now. Sounds like it would be pretty useful." Kefla said, "Oh, it is. Plus, the ability to fly is pretty neat." And then she put a dumpling in her mouth and chewed for a long time. She swallowed and gave one nod. "Hey, this stuff's pretty good. Trust me, there's a lot of delicious food in this world. I'm sure you two will enjoy everything you get to eat." Naruto grinned. "Now, you told me before that I have ki as well. Will you two really teach me how to use it?" "That's the plan. The old-timer wanted us to stick together and asked us to train you in the usage of your ki. From what I can sense, you've got a lot of it, but it's pretty much untapped potential right now. I'm guessing you've used your chakra pretty much exclusively, haven't ya Naruto?" Kefla asked, receiving a nod to confirm her evaluation. "Well, we'll have to teach you how to draw on your ki energy before anything else. Considering the fact that you have two separate energy sources within you, it might be kinda difficult at first, but once you get the hang of it, then we can teach you how to fly and fire ki blasts and all kinds of wonderful things. Plus, there's a bunch of stuff about the Saiyan race that I need to tell you about, Naruto. With a tiny, imperceptible frown on her face, Anko decided to speak up at this time. So, you two really are from another world then. You're gonna have to explain all of that to me in detail later. For now, we need to go over introductions and the usual jazz about how you aren't really genin yet and whatever. Naruto turned to face his new sensei, and his eyes grew wide. Wait, what do you mean we aren't genin? The violet-haired Kunoichi raised an eyebrow in Naruto's direction. What, you didn't really expect that academy crap to be it, did you? No, the real test is held by the Jonin sensei of each team. Most of them are pretty much guaranteed to fail, but that's to be expected. The academy just isn't the same as it used to be, so a lot of your fellow graduates just aren't prepared for this lifestyle. Anko clarified. Before pointing a thumb at her chest and smiling, she said, now, ignoring that, let's get introductions underway. I'll show you how it's done, Sue, here we go. The name's Anko Mitarashi. I'm a sexy badass that's looking forward to teaching you three. I like dango, my friends, a variety of sweets, and snakes. I dislike my old sensei, Orochimaru Tem. I also dislike rapists and punks that don't know when to shut their damn mouths. I also dislike creeps that target my friends. Have to admit I also dislike that Asuma Sarutobi guy for hitting on Kurenai so much. She's mine, damn it. She quickly raised her fists and replied, continued. Anyways, I've got a few hobbies, my favorite of which is torturing the poor bastards brought into T&I. Finally, my dream, meh, I suppose my biggest dream is to kill Orochimaru and get this damn hickey of doom removed. She said, massaging the mark on her neck. Naruto, why don't you go next, And don't try to feed me any of that fake bullshit either, because I'll know. He took a moment to think about his dislikes before continuing. I wasn't planning on it, Anko-sensei. That part of me, I want to say it is mostly gone. My name, as you know, is Naruto Uzumaki. I like ramen, training, and the few friends I actually have. What I dislike, Naruto stopped and shuddered as he recalled his friend Rock Lee and his friend's sensei. I don't like being lied to. I used to dislike what the villagers thought of me and why they were like that, but now I just don't give a damn. I don't like the 3 minutes it takes to heat up ramen. As for hobbies, I know it's not entirely healthy, but I like training. Maybe a little too much, but not like those green guys, he said. Dreams for the future were next, right? While I used to dream of wanting to be the Hokage, I'm not sure if I want that anymore. What I do hope for though is to become friends with Kale-chan and Kefla-chan here and learn about my race. Hell, I'd even love to travel through space and meet all kinds of other races, including others of my kind. I know that's pretty much a pipe dream though, considering our world lacks the technology required to craft a spaceship. Naruto said with a sigh. After acknowledging this with a nod, Anko turned to face Kefla. As she waited to see if she could get a raise from the Saiyan, she smiled and said, okay, it's your turn, cauliflower. Kefla snarled for a moment, then thrust a finger in Anko's face as she twitched and looked into her eyes. After getting a nod of approval, Kefla folded her arms across her chest and looked up as though thinking. The name's Kefla. I like fighting. A lot. The stronger an opponent is and the more thrilling the fight, the happier I am. I also like my gang, especially Kale. I also like the food I've tried on this planet, so that's a plus. Dislikes are next, right? I dislike boring shit, especially a boring fight. I also dislike people picking on Kale. Mess with her and you're fucked. I also dislike weaklings hitting on me and Kale. Hobbies. Training and fighting are my hobbies, I suppose. Dreams. Meh. I haven't really given it much thought. I suppose I'd like to be the toughest bitch out there in the known universe. That's something to aspire towards, right? Anko smiled at the 16-year-old Saiyan and nodded her head while chuckling a little. Anko smiled kindly at the bashful Saiyan and said, why don't you introduce yourself? Damn right, that's a worthy goal. I'll do whatever I can to help you achieve that goal of yours. Now, Kalia. After a moment of fidgeting, the shy but attractive Saiyan looked into Anko's eyes and gave a single nod. Oh okay. My name is Kale. I like Kefla, animals, flowers, and some other things. I dislike anyone that speaks bad about Kefla. I dislike that I'm so worthless and unable to really help Kefla in any way. I have a few hobbies I suppose. I like collecting cute things, such as stuffed animals and cute little keychains and other things. I also like flower pressing. D dreams. I'm not as sure. I want to be more useful to Kefla, and I suppose now that I'd like to be helpful to Naruto. I also want to get stronger. Kefla shook her head and scowled at her friend. Kale, how many times do I have to tell you that you aren't useless to me? I trust you with my life. You're my most important friend, for crying out loud. We're really going to have to work on your confidence, Kale. Naruto gave Kale a shoulder pat and a smile. It's okay, Kale-chan. We're here for you, and I promise you're going to get tougher and gain more confidence by the time we're through with you. Besides, we Saiyans gotta stick together, right? Anko stood up after giving her 3 priceless genin a smile. Alright, with introductions out of the way, I want you 3 to head on home and get some rest. You're to meet me at training ground number 44, otherwise known as the Forest of Death, tomorrow morning bright and early. We'll hold your test there. See y'all later, kiddos, she exclaimed as she disappeared in a body flicker. Naruto frowned and turned to face his female teammates as soon as Anko left. Naruto sighed and remarked, great. She's left us to pay the tab. Damn cheapskate. The black-haired youth sighed once more before taking out his wallet and depositing enough cash to cover the cost of the food and drink they had ordered. I'm assuming you two don't have any of this world's currency on hand, do you? He asked, receiving dismissive shakes of the head from both of them. Then he got up from his seat and turned to face the girls. Well, wanna hang out for a while? We can even train for a bit if you want. Kefla got up and punched one hand into the other, smiling at her new friend and fellow Saiyan. I like the sound of that. Come on, Kale, let's go have some fun tearing up one of those training grounds. Kale stood up, nodding slowly, then gave her friends an uneasy smile. I hope I don't let you two down. With a sigh, Kefla gave Kale a quick flick of the forehead and put an arm around her shoulders. Stop being such a downer, Kale. You'll do great. Now let's go. Naruto led the way out of the shop and toward a training ground he often used, laughing a little. He couldn't wait to see what his new friends could do. This ought to be enjoyable. Later that evening, when the 3 Saiyans arrived back at Naruto's apartment building, they were taken aback. The reason for their surprise is that Kefla and Kale, who lived in the apartment directly next to Naruto's, were their neighbors. It was pleasant to see his new friends living in the same building as him, even though it wasn't the best building in the world and things didn't always work as they should, like the water heater crashing on Naruto when he went to take a shower. To avoid being alone without a familiar face, Kefla scowled and invited herself into Naruto's apartment, with Kale following right away. Initially, they were happy to simply wish each other a good night and sweet dreams. Kefla scowled as he sat down on his couch and met Naruto's eyes. Naruto, this building's a dump. I love the fact that we're in the shadier part of Konoha, but I think you need to talk to the Hokage about a new home for the 3 of us. Hell, your parents might have even left a home for you that the old-timer hasn't told you about. Not sure why he's keeping secrets from ya, but it's not really any of my business. I just know I'd prefer to have somewhere nice to live rather than this dump. Wouldn't you? After giving a slow nod, the violet-eyed Saiyan entered the kitchen and started preparing a meal for the 3 of them. I dunno either, but I'm sick of him lying to me. First he lied about why I'm so hated by everybody, and then he continues to lie about not knowing my parents. Makes it pretty damn hard to trust him. So if he refuses to give me my inheritance from my parents, I'll just have to do something about it. 'Cause let's face it, I'm sick of living a shitty life because of his poor decisions. Kale moved up next to Naruto and gave him a shy smile before Kefla could respond, making her furrow her brow. See, can I help you cook? And Naruto. With a slow nod, the taller Saiyan looked into Kale's eyes and started to show her how to prepare the food he was preparing. Kefla couldn't help but grin to herself as they got to work and Kale started to get to know Naruto better. Kale will benefit greatly from his presence. I'm happy. The Forest of Death. The following morning, each of the Saiyans was listening to the different sounds coming from the dark forest beyond the large fence. The 2 more active Saiyans were excited, ready to get in there and kick some ass, and they could both sense that the Forest of Death was home to some pretty strong creatures. However, Kale was a little more reserved and found herself twitching uneasily as she heard the noises the animals were making. When Anko eventually appeared after waiting for about 30 minutes, they turned to face her. Kefla and Naruto both smiled at her as waves of excitement rolled off them. Naruto excitedly cried, "So what's our test, Anko-sensei? Do we get to go in there and kick some ass? The violet-haired Kunoichi shook her head and laughed quietly to herself. She scolded him, saying, "Patience, Naruto-kun. Patience. Your test is simple enough. I've hidden 3 objects of great importance within the Forest of Death. Find them, survive whatever might lie in wait, and return here with all 3 objects before 2 hours are up and I might officially accept you as my team. Just be warned that the forest is an incredibly dangerous place and you might encounter interesting situations in there. Do have fun now," she exclaimed as she jumped the fence and ran into the pitch-black woods. "Well, what are we waiting for? Let's get in there and have some fun." Naruto grinned as he turned to face his teammates. Kefla nodded her head and giggled a little before jumping the fence, with Naruto and Kale trailing behind her. "This is going to be awesome." They stopped in a small clearing and Kefla said, "You know, now that I think on it, how are we supposed to find these 3 items she's hidden within just 2 hours? This forest is huge." Kale chose to make a suggestion after glancing at her 2 fellow Saiyans. You and me can fly around, looking for the items. But that leaves Naruto alone. To stop them from acting, Naruto raised a hand and shook his head. While that might help, it would only hinder us in the long run, and likely cause us to fail the test anyway. The village prides itself on teamwork amongst allies. This test is likely meant to test us as a team, rather than as an individual. Besides that, I have a better idea. Shadow clone technique. Hundreds of Naruto clones materialized in the clearing in an instant, and each one left without saying a word, some working in groups of 3 or pairs, while others went it alone. He couldn't help but smile when he saw the shocked looks on his new friends' faces. Unable to comprehend what had just transpired, Kefla took Naruto by the shoulders and gave him a death stare. "What the hell was that just now? How the hell do you create so many clones?" With a small laugh, the young man with the violet eyes reached up and gave his forehead a single tap. "I have a ton of chakra. What I just used is a technique known as the shadow clone technique. It's a chakra-intensive technique, and most people can only make 1 or 2 clones at most. Any more and they might end up killing themselves. As for why I made so many this time, it's simple. When a shadow clone dispels, the user gets their memories. So, once they find the items we're looking for, all they have to do is dispel and we'll be good. Of course, if too many dispel at once, it'll be like I've suffered whiplash or something similar. I could even end up in a temporary coma, unfortunately. The brain can only handle so much information at once, after all." After hearing this, Kale appeared extremely concerned. But that's dangerous. You could be really hurt, Naruto-kun. Doesn't that worry you?" To her embarrassment, Naruto approached her, smiled warmly, and gently pulled her into an embrace. "It's all right, Kale-chan, I'll be all right." They know to dispel slowly, in small groups of 5 at once. Besides that, we've only got 2 hours to finish this test, so I went with the quickest method I could think of. Despite her intense blush, the timid Saiyan did not try to break free of Naruto's hold. Rather, she put her head against his chest and gave him a tentative hug in return, savoring the warmth that the embrace provided. They were separated by Kefla's words, "All right, enough of that. As sweet a moment as that was, we've got a job to do. Any luck with the clones yet, Naruto?" Naruto began to shake his head, but he stopped when he was struck by some of the clones' memories. Grinning, he looked into Kefla's eyes and, "Some have run into problems, let's say. They're being dispelled by the various creatures of the forest, though with their size it's easy to just call them monsters. One group did just find one of the items, but it's sitting under a giant wasp's nest. We'll have to be extremely careful if we want to get that item and get out of there without alerting those wasps to our presence. With their size, it could very likely result in our deaths if we aren't careful." This was sneered at by the raucous Saiyan. "I'm not scared of some stupid wasps. Bring 'em on." Kale shook her head and scowled. "No, Kefla, I think Naruto-kun is right. It's best not to agitate them if we can help it." Naruto gave a nod of agreement. "That, and I have a feeling this is a test to see how good our stealth is. After all, one of a shinobi's greatest skills is their stealth. How well can they hide and observe the situation? How good are they at sneaking up on their foes and taking them out in an efficient manner? Stealth is vital for any shinobi to know. No, Kefla-chan, our goal should be to retrieve the item without alerting the wasps to our presence. Though, There is a chance that Anko-sensei will disturb their nest after we've retrieved the item, meaning we may very well have to fight or flee. Saiyan, a fierce woman, scowled and crossed her arms over her chest. HMPH. You shinobi don't do anything half-assed, do ya? I don't like the idea of fleeing from a bunch of noisy insects, but I'll defer to your judgment in this case. If we're supposed to be stealthy, then so be it. So come on already and show us to this precious item we're supposed to collect. As he hopped onto a branch and started tree hopping in an apparently random direction, Naruto nodded and gestured for the team's female members to follow him. Kefla followed without hesitation, but she took a moment to glance back at her sister Saiyan, who appeared to be quite anxious. Come on Kale, if you don't hurry it up, you're going to be left behind. Kefla scowled at this. Kale scowled briefly before nodding as she glanced up at her sister. She followed Kefla and Naruto into the tree, but her frown quickly returned as she became absorbed in her thoughts. This still bothers me. By employing that technique, Naruto is putting his own health at risk. Yes, it might be useful, but it's also very risky. Seeing Kale's dejected expression, Kefla slowed down and started to hop next to her fellow Saiyan. Kale, talk to me. What's on your mind? The shy teenager said softly. Naruto's a really nice person, isn't he, sister? As she stared directly at Naruto. The raucous Saiyan glanced from Kale to Naruto and back again, raising one eyebrow. You trying to tell me that you're crushing on him already or what? Kale shook her head and flushed. And no, I'm just worried about him. I know we haven't known him for very long, but what we do know worries me. He's been through a lot, and now he's using some kind of ninja technique that could really hurt him and I don't like it. This just doesn't feel right. A smirk was slowly developing on the slightly shorter Saiyan's face as she glanced at Kale and raised her eyebrows. Sure sounds like you're crushing on him to me. Ah, my little Kale's growing up. She laughed. The embarrassment caused Kale to punch Kefla in the arm as her blush deepened. She hurried off after Naruto, leaving Kefla to laugh as she attempted to catch up. Stop it Kefla. Let's just go. We'll pretend ID didn't say anything. Okay, she demanded. Kefla is stupid. She doesn't have to make fun of me. When they all came to a halt on the same branch a few moments later, Naruto signaled for them to stop talking by putting a finger to his mouth. Then he gestured toward one of the trees nearby, higher up. Indeed, the buzzing from the enormous wasp's nest was audible to them. In fact, the buzzing was so loud that the mere sound of it was starting to hurt. Naruto gestured toward the clearing they were above after a brief pause. That's Hokage-sama's pipe. I may not like the bastard for lying to my face all these years, but that thing's important to him. More importantly for us though is that we need to collect that and whatever the other two items are for our test. Stay here, I'll go get it real quick. The 14-year-old shinobi started to descend to the ground below before either girl could speak. At this, Kale frowned as something she rarely desa and met Kefla's eyes. See why I worry about him now. Kefla folded her arms across her chest and gave a slow nod. He is a bit reckless, isn't he? Then again, I'm not really one to talk. I've done worse, if you'll recall. Kale nodded in agreement with that statement and giggled a little. You really have, Kefla. Still, we should, oh dear. Huh, Kefla's eyebrows twitched as she glanced in Kale's direction. Oh, that bitch. You might wonder, what was the issue? Anko was flipping through a series of hand seals in anticipation of some sort of technique, and he had appeared in a tree not far from the wasp's nest. When fire burst from her mouth and hit the bottom of the nest, the Saiyans were both startled and unsurprised. Huge wasps practically burst out of the nest in a flash, but Anko was gone. Rather, they landed on Naruto. Come on, we need to help him. We can think about paying that psycho bitch back for this later. Kefla said, gazing into her partner's eyes. Kale immediately followed Kefla into action, and the two of them shot the wasps out of the sky as fast as they could by using a lot of ki blasts. But there were a lot of wasps, and they split their focus between Naruto and the two sister Saiyans when they saw their comrades plummeting from the sky. Naruto pocketed the pipe and sealed it away in a scroll down below, then focused on the wasps that were descending on him. Knew she'd pull something like this. Not much of a choice but to go with what I know. Shadow clone technique. Hundreds of Naruto clones materialized in a split second and started attacking the wasps in retaliation. Come on, my clones will distract them so we can get away. There's just too damn many of them to risk staying here and fighting them, declared the real Naruto, who had emerged behind Kefla and Kale. Are you kidding me? Why the hell should we run from these things? If you're scared, you can run away, but I'm going to kick their asses. Kefla yelled with rage. Kale grabbed her arm just as she was ready to attack the wasps once more. What is it, Kale? Kefla scowled as she looked into her best friend's eyes. Kale nodded her head and said, Please Kefla, we should leave while we have the opportunity. I know you want to stay and fight, but there are times when running away is a better idea. And Naruto's right, please. Despite frowning, Kefla nodded her head grudgingly. Fine, let's go before they target us again. Your clones better be able to hold these shits off, Naruto. The feisty Saiyan looked at Naruto. Hey, no problem. I put a little something extra into these clones, so as soon as we're a safe distance away from this problem, they'll take care of things. Now, let's go. One of my clones found the second item, so we'll head there now. With a nod, Kale and Kefla started to follow their fellow Saiyan in yet another seemingly arbitrary direction. They discovered that the entire area was booby-trapped to hell when they eventually arrived at the next item's location. With a somewhat irritated tone, Kefla remarked, Well, this fucking sucks. When the bashful Saiyan saw what it was, he scowled in perplexity. Why is this item a book? Is there something special about this book? With a sigh, Naruto combed through his black hair, which was spiky. That's one of the Hokage's most precious belongings. It's basically a smut book written by one of his students, Jiraiya of the Sannin. Trust me, they're nothing but trash. And yet, perverts absolutely love 'em. He replied with a shrug. Yeah, that's all well and good. Now, how do we go about getting the damn thing without setting off a buttload of traps? Kefla said, dismissively waving her hand. The young Saiyan shrugged his shoulders after surveying all the strategically placed traps. Just leave it to me. All my pranks on the villagers for their bullshit were pretty good at honing my trap-making and disarming skills. I'll get that book, no problem. They were somewhat taken aback by how simple it was for Naruto to disarm the traps as they watched him get to work. Kefla and Kale jumped down when he was done, and the raucous Saiyan woman picked it up and started leafing through it out of pure curiosity. She shook her head in disgust after reading a few pages and seeing the pictures. This is pure garbage. I could write a better book than this shit. Naruto nodded his head in agreement and gave a small laugh. I'm already working on writing some novels myself. Romance mixed with adventure. Hopefully once I'm finished, they'll sell well enough that I'll be set for a while financially. He replied with a shrug. At this, Kale's face lit up, and she grinned giddy as she met his eyes. You're writing a book. That's amazing. How come you didn't tell us before? The young man rubbed the back of his head and laughed a little. Sorry, it just kinda slipped my mind. With a sigh, Kefla gestured to the Hokage's book. Okay, enough of that. Where's the next item? By my estimation, we've already been here for about an hour, looking for these things. I'm curious to see what we have to deal with next. As Naruto opened his mouth to speak, he suddenly clutched his head and let out a painful groan. He squirmed in pain and uttered, crap, I didn't think they'd all dispel at once like that. Kale put her hands on his arms in a flash and met his eyes. And Naruto-kun, are you okay? The young woman with the violet eyes gazed into Kale's anxious eyes and gave her a slight, tense smile. I'll be fine, Kale-chan. Something happened to the rest of my clones and they all dispelled at once. One of them did find the last item, though. It's surrounded by a bunch of giant leeches, some large wolves, and other animals. It's like a nest of monsters. After giving Naruto a quick glance, Kefla put a hand on his head and gently tousled his hair. Just show us where it is, and Kale and I will take care of it. You've done enough, Naruto. No need to push yourself too hard. With a nod, Naruto guided them to the last object. The young man with the black hair identified all of the adversaries they would face when they arrived at their destination. Then he sighed as he glanced down at the object. That's the Hokage's crystal ball that he uses to spy on people. I know he's used it to spy on me on more than one occasion. He doesn't know that I know about that though. With a deep scowl, Kale gave Naruto's hand a light squeeze. That's wrong. That's an invasion of privacy. He shouldn't do such a thing. With a scowl, Kefla said, maybe we should just smash the damn thing if he's going to pull that kind of crap. I'd rather he not look in on the three of us like that. Naruto shook his head and let out a sigh. If we smash it, we be in deep shit. Let's just grab the damn thing and get this test over with. I know I could use some rest after my clones were all dispelled like that. The mental backlash hurts like hell. The fierce Saiyan woman put a soft hand on her fellow Saiyan's shoulder after glancing at him. Like I said before, just leave this part to us. We'll get that item and deal with all the threats in the area. Ready, Kale? A rare expression of seriousness came to her face as Kale nodded. Yeah, let's do this, Kefla. After that, the two Saiyan women left, destroying the insects and animals that had settled there. With the two of them cooperating to eliminate every enemy, it had devolved into a sort of massacre despite the overwhelming number. When they were done, Kale picked up the crystal ball and looked at it with a deep frown. I don't like this thing. IW wish we could just get rid of it. Kefla nodded her head in agreement while glaring at the object. Same. Oh well, let's just go. Anko-sensei is probably waiting for us at the gate. I'd rather not keep the psycho waiting any longer than we have to. Kale tentatively reached out and brushed her fingers against Naruto's before taking his hand in hers and giving it a tiny squeeze as they started to head back towards the gate where their sensei would be waiting. She blushed slightly and gave him a shy smile when he turned to face her. They simply walked together in silence, not even exchanging words. This made Kefla smile when she saw it. Atta girl, Kale, I'm happy that you feel so at ease with him. He seems like he will have a very good impact on you. They could see their sensei, who was waiting for them with a devilish grin on her face, as they approached the gate. Well, looks like you've got the items, and you're looking to be in pretty good shape too. Good job. Kefla glared at Anko and angrily gestured with a finger. You're a psycho, pissing off those wasps, setting up a ton of freaking traps, and then putting this stupid crystal ball in the middle of a damn monster's nest. What were you even thinking? At this Anko started to laugh. I was thinking that I needed to really test you to see just what you were capable of. I only knew so much before taking on this team, and I felt I needed to get to know you three better. Though Naruto, you're looking a bit worse for wear. You alright? Slowly, Naruto nodded. I'll be fine, just have a hell of a headache from most of my clones dispelling at once. It'll pass eventually. Anyways, do we pass, Anko-sensei? The snake mistress gave them a thumbs up and nodded. Yep, we're officially Team 11 starting today. I'd say let's start with your training and take some of those lame D-rank missions, but that seems kinda pointless when you're feeling like that, Naruto. Unless you think you can handle some simple stuff. After a long moment of thoughtful frowning, the teen with the whiskers shook his head and said, I'd love to say, hell yeah. Come on, let's do it, but honestly, I just don't feel up to doing any of that crap. I think right now, I just need some rest. Anko smiled at him and gave him a shoulder pat. Let me treat you guys to a nice lunch before you head on home to get some sleep. Naruto. Naruto nodded his head and grinned. Sounds like a plan to me, Anko-sensei. Thank you. Anko shrugged and led her team to the Hokage tower, saying, Meh, don't mention it. You deserve to enjoy something good to eat after having to go through all this crap for a lousy test. First though, we need to return this junk to Hokage-sama. I'm sure he's missing his precious stuff. Kinda wish I could just get rid of him though. Glancing first at the book in her hands and then at the crystal ball Kale was holding, Kefla sneered. This book's complete trash, and I don't care for the idea that he can spy on us with that crystal ball of his whenever he wants. I don't give a shit about the pipe, but those two things need to be destroyed. Hey, I agree with ya Kefla-chan. Sadly, perverts like him love that smutty crap. Trust me, if you ever see a silver-haired man with one eye and his nose buried in one of those books, steer clear of him. Kakashi's a lazy bastard that doesn't deserve his rank if you ask me. Anko replied, sounding somewhat offended by what she thought of the individual. As for the crystal ball, he mainly uses it to spy on Naruto-kun. After all, gotta keep an eye on the village's greatest weapon, right? At this, Kale frowned and tightened his grip on Naruto's hand. That's just not right. Naruto-kun's not just some weapon. He's a person, just like the rest of us. How can they treat him like that? With a sorrowful shake of her head, Anko turned back to Kale. It's just how Jinchuriki like Naruto-kun are treated in this world. It pisses me off, because the villages make them into Jinchurikis, oftentimes without their consent, and then they treat them like trash. They view them as the demons themselves and not as real people. Others like to treat them as weapons that shouldn't have feelings of their own. I've heard that soon as Jinchuriki has had numerous attempts on his life and he's turned into a psychopath because of that shit. And sadly, That's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to how people treat Jinchuriki. I hate it. Kale's expression was one of shock and horror, while Kefla's was one of annoyance. With her fists clenched, the curvaceous Saiyan turned to face Anko and declared, I swear to whatever gods you pray to hear that, if they continue to treat Naruto-kun like that, I'll start killing people. I refuse to let him suffer their shit any longer. At this, Naruto scowled and shook his head. It won't help, Kefla-chan. You'll just get in trouble for killing citizens of Konoha. I don't want you to get in trouble because of me. It's best just to ignore the assholes and deal with all the crap as best we can. And also, because I don't think you've had the pleasure of meeting them yet, I'd steer clear of Sasuke Uchiha and his fangirls, especially Sakura Haruno and Ino Yamanaka. Sasuke's a prick that's so damn full of himself, it's a wonder the stick up his ass hasn't penetrated his brain yet. Sakura and Ino though, they're psycho bitches when it comes to their precious Sasuke-kun. Trust me when I say this, you are going to hate them. Then again, you're probably going to hate a lot of people in this village. I know I do. At this, Kefla frowned and grasped his free hand in hers. With us here, you won't be alone to deal with their shit anymore. I promise we'll look out for you, Naruto-kun. We Saiyans gotta stick together, after all. Right, Kale? Kale gave a firm nod and grinned as she turned to face her new friend. Alright, we're with you, Naruto-kun. You'll never have to feel lonely again. This made Naruto laugh a little, and he thanked them both. But Anko caught their attention before he could speak. We're here you three, let's get in there and give the Hokage his stuff back. I'll have to give my report on how you did, and let him know you've passed and all that jazz. After that's over and done with, we can go get some food. Sound good? Kefla beat a fist to her chest while smiling. Hell yeah, I'm starving, and I'd rather not be around the old man for any longer than I have to be. I know I probably shouldn't say this about the leader of the village, but I don't like him. Don't trust him either. Anko nodded and continued, I don't blame you. Not with all the secrets he's been keeping from Naruto-kun for so damn long. Naruto should have been made aware of the Kyuubi much sooner. He also has the right to know about his parents. But nope, Hokage-sama has to be an asshole about that shit. He's made some awful decisions regarding Naruto-kun, and it makes it hard to trust him. I'm not sure what the hell his problem is, but we shouldn't dwell on it for too long. It'll just piss us off the more we think about it. After giving Anko a sympathetic nod, the three Saiyans trailed into the Hokage's office. When they were inside, they reluctantly bowed to Hiruzen and laid the three valuables on his desk. Sorry about taking these things from you, Hokage-sama. If it helps any, they passed the test pretty much flawlessly, so that's good, right? Hiruzen nodded his head and gave a small laugh. Of course, and don't worry, I'm not upset. I wouldn't have let you take them if I feared they would be lost to me forever. And you say they passed your test. Good to hear. Congratulations, Naruto-kun, Kefla, and Kale. The two female Saiyans were silent, but Naruto said, thank you, Hokage-sama. Will that be all? My head's killing me and I could really use some rest. The third Hokage shook his head and scowled. I have something to discuss with you, Naruto-kun. Anko, please take your other genin and leave my office. What we have to discuss is a private matter. This made Anko frown, but he reluctantly nodded. She led the two 16-year-old Saiyans out of the office, gesturing for them to follow. Anko said, we'll wait for him out here. I have a feeling he's gonna be pretty pissed, if my gut isn't lying to me, after they had closed the door and she had looked into the eyes of her fellow women. Naruto sat down in the office and looked directly into the Hokage's eyes. What did you need from me, Hokage-sama? Hiruzen let out a sigh. He was aware that Naruto no longer respected him, and he was fairly certain that he knew why. He inhaled deeply and exhaled slowly before looking directly into Naruto's eyes and saying, I know they told you about your parents. I also know you're upset with me for hiding what I have from you. You must understand though that it was in your best interests to maintain those secrets. Laughing, Naruto turned to the Hokage and, bullshit. It might have been in your best interests to hide everything from me, but it certainly wasn't in mine. I deserve to know about at least the Kyuubi. I asked you time and time again why I was so despised by the villagers, and you lied right to my face every fucking time. And I asked you about my parents so damn often because I knew you knew exactly who they were. It would have been wonderful to know that they at the very least fucking loved me, but no. You wouldn't even give me that comfort. So no, You old bastard, it wasn't in my best interests at all. Hiruzen shook his head and scowled. I'd prefer it if you didn't call me that, Naruto-kun. As your Hokage, I deserve respect. Respect is earned, not given freely, Hokage-sama. And whatever respect I had for you is gone now. If you want my respect again, you'll have to earn it the hard way, just as everyone else has to. Hiruzen sighed, shook his head, and reached into one of his desk drawers, taking out some keys, a couple of scrolls, and a few letters. Handing them to Naruto on his desk, he replied, as you wish, Naruto-kun. Anyways, these are from your parents. As you already know, your father was a Saiyan named Karen. Your mother was the last of her clan, the Uzumakis. Her name was Kushina and she loved your father dearly. When she learned that she was pregnant with you, she was absolutely ecstatic. Your father was proud and couldn't wait for you to be born. Unfortunately, someone infiltrated the village at the time of your birth and pretty much ripped the Kyuubi from your mother. I'm not sure who it was that did it, but whoever it was is responsible for your parents' demise. I'm sorry. At this, Naruto shook his head and frowned. My best guess is it was a Uchiha. From what I've read of them, the strongest of them can control the Biju if they wanted to. So yeah, I'm pretty sure Uchiha is responsible for the Kyuubi attack on the village. And then it was sealed into me. I may not have talked to the Kyuubi yet, but I'm sure he's probably pretty pissed off. Just tell me this, Hokage-sama, did my parents want to seal the Kyuubi into me? Hiruzen gave a negative shake of his head. No, Naruto-kun. Your mother would have rather taken the Kyuubi with her into the grave than make you suffer as its Jinchuriki. Your father wouldn't have allowed it either. But Minato, my successor, chose to seal the beast inside of you instead, much to your parents' protests against such a thing. I honestly don't know if he felt the village needed a weapon, or if he was just a naive fool, but what's done is done. You are the third Kyuubi Jinchuriki, and as such are important to this village, whether you realize it or not. Seeing this, Naruto crossed his arms over his chest and replied, if I'm so damn important to the village, then the least you can do is make sure those villagers treat me with some fucking respect. No, you'd rather let them beat me, humiliate me, and rob me of whatever happiness I deserve. Instead, you told me to forgive them and try to understand where they were coming from. That they didn't know any better and would eventually stop with their shit. How wrong you were, old man. With a sigh, the third Hokage nodded his head. I know, and I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. If I could go back and do things right, you should believe that I would. I've made my fair share of mistakes, especially regarding you, Naruto-kun. Anyways, I've taken up enough of your time. These are from your parents. I'll guide you and your friends to your new home. I'll send a genin team to your apartment to pack your things and move them into your new home. Follow me, Naruto-kun. Naruto gathered his parents' belongings and trailed the Hokage out of his office, saying, as you wish, Hokage-sama. Upon noticing his teammates were waiting for him, he smiled and gestured for them to come after him. After a brief scowl, the three of them shrugged and trailed behind the two men. Their eyes widened in surprise as they arrived at the gates leading into Naruto's parents' house. Looking at Naruto's new house, Anko exclaimed, wow, you lucky guy, you get to live someplace awesome. After giving a slow nod of agreement, Naruto followed the Hokage's instructions and dabbed at some blood on the seal that closed the gate. He and his companions followed the Hokage as the gate opened, and Naruto swiftly unlocked the front door using one of the keys he now had. When Team 11 members entered, they were astounded to discover that everything seemed to be in immaculate condition, almost as if it hadn't aged at all. Seeing their disbelief, Hiruzen smiled and, your mother was a master of seals, Naruto-kun. Making a seal to preserve everything in the house was child's play for her. I'm sure you'll soon come to realize the usefulness of Fuinjutsu, as I'm quite sure she's left plenty of materials for you to work with. I'm sure that, with enough time, you'll become a Fuinjutsu master that surpasses even your mother in the art. Naruto gave Hiruzen a slow nod while maintaining eye contact. Thanks old man, I appreciate it. My team and I were going to go get some lunch. Can you wait until afterwards to hire the genin team for me, please? Of course, Naruto-kun. You deserve to enjoy a celebratory meal with your friends. Just come inform me when you're finished and I'll send a genin team out to collect your things. Alright. Thanks Hokage-sama. Come on ladies, let's go get some grub. Naruto threw his fist in the air and grinned. The Hokage then led them out and gave Naruto instructions on how to reseal the gate so that only Team 11 could enter. Hiruzen said goodbye to them when they were done and went back to his office, leaving Team 11 to go get some grub, as Naruto had instructed. The following day, Kefla, obviously furious, screamed, "I swear to Kami that if this rotten cat scratches me one more fucking time, I'll kill the damn thing. I don't care who the little bastard belongs to." Indeed, Team 11 participated in the notorious Tora capture operation. The little beast had already scratched Naruto and Kefla several times. Thus, she froze for a moment when both Saiyans glared at her as Kale approached a moment later holding Tora, who was purring happily in her arms. Naruto asked plainly, "How? She seems to like me. Maybe a gentle approach is the best," Kale said, shrugging her shoulders. A moment later, Anko showed up and gave a head nod. "Always best to be gentle with the little rascal. Just chasing the little brat around and scaring her won't get you anywhere." With a sigh, Naruto slowly nodded. "You're probably right. Anyways, let's go return Tora and get paid for this crappy job." Kefla sounded very irritated as she said, "I'm with ya. Screw this damn cat, and you say this little beast runs away from its owner all the damn time. What's up with that, huh?" "You'll understand soon enough," Anko said with a sigh. Shortly after, in the Hokage's office, Team 11 was conflicted when they witnessed the obese woman, Madame Shijimi, choking Tora to death. They believed the little shit deserved it, on the one hand. On the other hand, they couldn't help but feel sorry for the unfortunate creature. When Kale could take it no more, he approached the woman and caught her eye. "Please ma'am, stop that. Tora doesn't like being squeezed to death like that. You need to be gentler with her. Here, let me show you." Kale took Tora from the daimyo's wife, held her close to her body, and started caressing her behind her ears. Kale started gently petting Tora until the cat dozed off in her arms after she started purring happily once more. "See, Madame Shijimi, try a gentler approach and she won't run away so often. Tora's actually a really good girl, but she runs away because you're far too rough with her." Madame Shijimi pulled Tora away from Kale and gave her a direct look. She gave Tora the same gentle pat that Kale had given her, saying, "Is that right, Tora? Has mommy been too rough on you?" "I'm sorry sweetie." The obese woman grinned broadly and turned to Kale with gratitude as Tora curled up in her arms and purred. "Thank you. What's your name, sweetie?" Kale ma'am. "My name is Kale." "Very good then. For your help in understanding my precious Tora, I'm going to make sure you get paid 10 times as much as what I would usually pay for such a mission." "Thank you again, Kale-chan." Kale smiled at the woman, blushing slightly. Thank you, Madame Shijimi. I really appreciate that." She turned and left Hiruzen's office after saying, "Of course. Now, Hiruzen, make sure you treat this girl and her team right. I couldn't be prouder of them." "Thank you, Kale. I believe we shouldn't be receiving any more missions to capture Tora from this point forward. Just as she said, you will be paid richly for your services. Now, are there any other missions you would like to undertake, Anko-chan?" The Hokage said, looking gratefully at Kale after she had left. "Not today, Hokage-sama. I'd like to get some training in before we do anything else. Besides, you can only handle so many D ranks a day. Lazy-ass civilians, refusing to do shit for themselves." That made Hiruzen laugh a little. They do seem to believe we shinobi are here to service them, rather than what we're really meant for. They have become arrogant and stupid over the years, I'm afraid. I just wish I knew what to do to fix the mess this has all become. Man up and do what needs to be done. It's as simple as that, Hokage-sama. You used to be quite the fearsome person, to friends and foes alike. You were confident in yourself and you did what had to be done. You've lost that spark over the years. I say shape up and show people why you were once renowned as the professor and god of shinobi." Anko raised her arms over her chest. Despite scowling at this, the third Hokage nodded his head in agreement. "True, I suppose I'd best start doing what's right, rather than what's easy. I'll try, Anko-chan. I just hope it isn't too late. I'm sure you can put everyone in their place if you put your mind to it." Naruto shrugged his shoulders and remarked, "The only time it would be too late is if you didn't act at all before you die. Anyways, we've got to go get some training in. Just think of all of this as food for thought. Not trying to show you any disrespect, old-timer. Just trying to help you become what you were meant to be." Hiruzen nodded as he said, "I understand, Naruto-kun. You four go on and enjoy yourselves. I'll think on what you've said and try to do what's right. Do take care of yourselves." After that, Team 11 left the Hokage's office and started walking outside in order to get back to training ground number 44 and start training again. After 2 weeks, let me get this straight. That little punk Sasuke demanded that you give him a tougher mission because he couldn't handle a few days of D-rank missions. And when you went to reprimand him for his attitude, Anko started but Naruto interrupted. That ass Kakashi insisted that his team was ready for AC rank, so you went and gave them one. But now it's gone to shit, they found out the client lied about the danger, and the mission's gone up to at least a B rank with a high possibility of becoming an A rank mission. Are we hearing this right? Hiruzen rubbed the bridge of his nose and sighed. I had hoped that by allowing them to go on this mission that Team 7, more specifically Sasuke and Sakura, would learn that they just aren't ready for this kind of mission yet. They need to understand the concept of teamwork, but they're failing in that regard. Yakumo-chan is the only one that shows any potential in that team, but she's going to stagnate if Kakashi doesn't focus on her training at all. You were right about Kakashi not being a suitable sensei for any team, Anko-chan. This was laughed at by Anko. You're damn right I was right. Kakashi's a lazy asshole that doesn't deserve his rank, let alone the reputation he's received as a feared shinobi. Maybe if he'd take things more seriously, he'd be better, but I kinda doubt it. Now, will you explain why you called us here for this? I'm assuming we're meant to back up Team 7. I get that right. Hiruzen nodded and continued, yes. They've gone to the Land of Waves to protect a bridge builder by the name of Tazuna while he builds his bridge. I want you to assist them in protecting Tazuna, but there's another mission I'd like you to undertake while you're there. Looking them all in the eyes intently, Hiruzen replied, assassinate Gato and wipe out everyone in his employ. Free those he's taken prisoner and set things right in Wave. Do you understand me? With a collective nod, Team 11 declared, of course, Hokage-sama. We'll do what needs to be done. Very good. Pack for a month and be on your way as soon as you can. That team is not ready for this kind of mission yet, so I'm placing you in charge, Anko-chan. If Kakashi has a problem with it, tell him to fuck off and give him this letter from me. This letter should set him straight. Anko grinned as she said, thank you, Hokage-sama. Glad to see you're returning to your old self, little by little. Now team, go and get packed for a month, just as Hokage-sama said. We're going to hurry after them and assist them however we can while keeping our real mission a secret. Knowing that little shit-stained Sasuke and his wannabe girlfriend, they'll just get jealous and demand that we allow them to take care of Gato. They shouted, yes, sensei, and hurried out of the Hokage's office to retrieve their belongings. Since Kale and Kefla had both moved in with Naruto on the same day that he had moved into his new house, they had only one destination. Anko, meanwhile, smiled as he glanced at the Hokage. I'm glad you've got enough confidence in my team to handle something like this, Hokage-sama. Thanks. Guess we'll be seeing you when we see ya next. Take care of yourself, old man. The third nodded his head and gave a small laugh. Take care of you and your team, Anko-chan. I'm looking forward to hearing good news from you upon your return. And if Kakashi and his team give you a hassle, I want you to tell me the full truth about them upon your return. Do you understand me? Of course, Hokage-sama. If that's all, I'll be on my way. Gotta get packed, after all. Just before Anko left his office, Hiruzen said, yes, that will be all Anko-chan. Be safe. Hiruzen let out a sigh and rubbed the bridge of his nose once more after they had left. Now to deal with the Councila. After a few days, as the scene unfolded in front of them, Team 11 could hardly believe what they were seeing. Zabuza Momochi had been their newest foe and had captured Kakashi with relative ease. The two idiots, Sakura and Sasuke, had charged the man's water clone only to be easily knocked out, leaving Team 7's genin essentially stranded to handle matters alone. Yakumo, poor Yakumo, was forced to defend the bridge builder alone. They could tell she was angry at her team for placing her in this situation in the first place based on the foul language she was using. Anko, who could no longer stand by and watch this, nodded to her genin and said, do it. With pleasure, Kefla said, then shot the clone with a ki blast, instantly eliminating it from the scene. The Saiyan smiled and flew at Zabuza as he glanced in her direction, launching a barrage of ki blasts at him until he had to defend with his blade or risk injury. He dropped the water sphere he was holding and bounded out of Kefla's way as the attacks simply continued. Come on, that all ya got, ya freak. Naruto shook his head and let out a sigh. She never changes, does she? Have to admit, I like that about her. She's awesome just the way she is. Kale nodded her head in agreement and giggled a little. I wouldn't change sis for anything. I'm happy just being near her. But, are you sure we shouldn't go down there and help her? Anko gave a headshake. Nah, she's got this. I'm sure the two of you could easily handle this as well if you wanted to. For now, let's check on the idiots and see if they're alright. Naruto shrugged his shoulders and remarked, as you wish. Though if Sasuke wakes up and starts bitching at me, I'm going to knock his ass right out again. After giggling a little at that, Kale and Anko went to see how Sakura and Kakashi were doing, respectively. With a sly grin on her face, Anko asked Kakashi, so, how do you feel, knowing that you got your ass handed to you by someone that should have been easy pickings for you? Kakashi put his headband back where it belonged, moaned, and shook his head in shock. Yeah, laugh it up Anko, I assume you're the backup that Hokage-sama chose to send. You know it, and to top it off, he's placed me in charge of this mission. You fucked up, Kakashi. Now it's time for me to take over and get things done the right way. At this, the silver-haired Jonin scowled and met her eyes directly. This is my team's mission, Anko. Where's the proof that he's placed you in charge? She reached into her pouch, pulled out the letter the Hokage had given her, and held it before him as though she were presenting a king, a nobleman, or something they were very interested in. Here, O Grand Master of Idiocy. With a frown, Kakashi grabbed the letter out of her hands and started reading it. His scowl deepened and his eye widened as he did. So, he's really entrusting all of this to you and your team, is he? Fine then, we'll follow your orders. At least for the moment. He reflected, wallowing a little in the realization that he had lost control. Sasuke, meanwhile, had turned around to find Naruto staring down at him. Why are you here, dumbass? With a sigh, Naruto shook his head in shock. Is that how you should greet someone for coming to your aid? You idiots should have returned to the village immediately upon finding out that the client lied about the danger of the mission. Should have left the old man to fend for himself. But no, you wanted to get stronger by fighting strong opponents, right? Typical for a power-hungry dumbass like you, Sasuke. What the hell does it matter to you? You didn't have your whole family killed in front of you. You didn't even have a family to begin with. You could never understand my pain. A moment of agitation passed as Naruto reached up and rubbed the bridge of his nose. After a moment, he gave Sasuke the hardest punch he could manage, breaking his nose and knocking him unconscious. Much better. Now I don't have to listen to his bullcrap until later. Unfortunately, Sakura saw this and attempted to run to her beloved, Sasuke-kun, but Kale restrained her. Stop Sakura, you need to rest a bit. You took a pretty nasty blow to the head back there. Angrily, the girl with the pink hair yelled, screw you. Sasuke-kun needs me, now get off of me you tramp. Kefla turned away from her vanquished adversary and gave Sakura a fierce glare. Then she flew at Sakura, ready to do just that. Nobody calls my sis a tramp. I'm going to stomp your head until it's fucking paste on the ground. She cried, but as soon as she approached, Kakashi materialized ahead of her, pinning the Saiyan fighter to the ground. As he kept pinning Kefla to the ground, Kakashi said gravely, no you don't. I won't let you harm a fellow citizen of Konohagakure. The Saiyan woman struggled to move as he held her tightly, despite her attempts to push him away with snarling and thrashing. Let me go you rotten, one-eyed bastard. Anko approached Kakashi and gave him a forceful punch to the face, knocking him off her student before he could respond. Fuck you Kakashi, you have no right to discipline my genin. That little bitch on your team should be your focus. Both her and the Uchiha runt. They need to learn their place and understand the pecking order in this world. If you can't rein them in and fix their attitudes, I'm going to inform Hokage-sama that you're just not fit to lead a team of genin. I'll also inform him about those little shits and explain how your dysfunctional team doesn't deserve to be called genin. The only one that truly means anything on your team is Yakumo Kurama. Not you, not the Uchiha, and especially not Little Miss Fangirl. The cycloptic Jonin stood up and gave Anko a fierce look. Hokage-sama may have put you in charge, but I won't have you telling me how to deal with my team. Before you point out the flaws of my team, you should take a good, long look at yours. Naruto's a moron that can't add 2 and 2 together to make 4. That girl's a loose cannon. And that one over there, she's clearly the weak link on your team and liable to get everyone killed. Every member of Team 11, including Kale, frowned at Kakashi. But instead of speaking, they took Tazuna and left Team 7 to their own devices, walking away with him toward his house. Kefla said gravely, I swear to Kami right now that if Team 7 keeps up with their shit, I'm breaking them. I won't tolerate their crap. Anko nodded her head and let out a sigh. She smiled at the only Team 7 member who actually followed them, saying, neither will I. Kakashi's proven to be worse than I could have ever imagined, and his genin aren't any better. No offense to you, of course, Yakumo. Anyways, did you finish Zabuza off, Kefla-chan? Kefla gave a negative shake of her head. Nope, some person claiming to be a hunter nin showed up and took him away before I could kill the punk. If you ask me, I'd say they're working together. Probably. What kind of weapon did this hunter nin use to deal the finishing blow on Mr. Monobrow? Asked Anko. These thin, pointy things that looked like needles. That ring any bells? Anko took a breath and replied, Sanbon. Yeah, the hunter nin is definitely working with Zabuza if she is using those. Guess we'd better prepare ourselves for a confrontation with them somewhere down the line. Naruto beat his fists together while smiling. I'm looking forward to it. How about you, Kefla-chan? Oh hell yeah, I'm gonna kick their asses so hard they won't be able to sit for a week. The fierce woman exclaimed, pumping her fist into the air while grinning at her friend. Anko giggled and replied, glad to hear it. Now Tazuna, you and I have a lot we need to discuss. Not the least of which is why exactly you lied to us about the danger level of this mission. You owe us some serious dough for endangering our people the way you have. Tazuna swallowed, but he gave a quick nod of comprehension. Oh of course, I'm so sorry. With genuine regret, Anko said to the young Kurama heiress, Meh, it's fine. You just ended up with a shitty team protecting you. Again, no offense intended to you, Yakumo-chan. We've just got a problem with your teammates, your sensei included. Yakumo nodded her head in agreement while letting out a sigh. Understandable. Trying to deal with those three is a horrible pain in the butt. Kakashi doesn't even deserve to be called a sensei, as he's focused all of his attention on Sasuke while neglecting Sakura and me. Then again, Sakura doesn't want to train at all anyways. Me though, I'd love to be learning more, but so far I've been left to my own devices. I really wish I had been placed on a different team. After hearing this, Anko scowled and remained silent for a while, considering Yakumo's predicament. Alright, if you're that eager to train, we'll help you out. We're going to have to see what you can do first, though. Okay. The heiress from Kurama smiled and gave a firm nod. I'm looking forward to it, Anko-san. Just call me Anko. I hope we can get along well during our time here, Anko said, laughing once more. In the meantime, Naruto was discussing their predicament with his fellow Saiyans. Kale, don't let what Kakashi said get to you. We know you're not some weak link. You're just as tough as anyone here. And Naruto, we know you're not some idiot. You've proven that time and again. If that asshole badmouths us again, I'm shoving my fist down his throat. Naruto laughed and replied, sounds like a good idea to me. He's an asshole, just like the jackass, Sasuke. And Kefla-chan is right, Kale-chan. You're awesome just the way you are. I wouldn't change who you are for the world. Kale looked a bit embarrassed and replied, thank you. And don't worry, I wasn't letting what he said get to me. When I'm with the two of you, I feel so much more confident in myself and I feel like I can really do anything. That's the spirit, Kale. Now, it looks like we're at the client's home. So, let's chill for a bit and then we can get to training. Right, sensei? Anko nodded her head and gave a small laugh. Of course. Glancing back over her shoulder, she saw that, as usual, Sakura was swooning over her beloved Sasuke-kun while Sasuke was practically pulling a tired Kakashi behind him. She shrugged, saying, at least they caught up finally. Ignoring Sasuke's scowl, Naruto just went into the client's house. He sat down on the couch close by, with Kale and Kefla joining him, and grinned as he surveyed the space. Nice place you got here, Tazuna. I like it. He said earnestly, thank you, Naruto. He smiled and gestured to the shinobi who were there to protect him as his beautiful daughter entered the room. Tsunami-chan, I want you to meet the super ninjas that are here to protect us. Tsunami grinned as she turned to face each of the ninja who had come to keep her father safe. With a slight bow, she said, thank you very much for protecting my father. I know he can be a handful, but I do hope he hasn't caused you any trouble. With a smile, Kakashi said, no trouble at all. Anko turned to Tsunami after glaring at Kakashi. Yes, he has been a problem. Your dear father lied about the danger this mission presented and put our people in great danger. If it was up to me, I'd have left Tazuna to fend for himself and called off the mission. But we're here, and we're going to put a stop to Gato and his machinations. Then, when your country is saved, Tazuna is going to have to pay the full price of this mission with whatever money your people can scrounge up. Maybe next time you'll put your father in his place and he'll learn not to fuck with us again." Tsunami shook her head in disappointment and scowled at her father. "I see. Then I'm truly sorry for my father's unruly behavior. Still, you have my thanks for looking after him. I sincerely hope you can save the land of waves." Anko grinned and said, "Of course we can. It's our job, after all. You've got nothing to worry about, I promise." When Tsunami said, "Thank you. Now, you must be starving. Let me cook something up for all of you. And please, if my son begins to hassle you for any reason at all, don't mind him. He's been through a lot and he's been changed because of it. No promises. If he says something that gets under our skin, we'll make it known loud and clear not to screw with us. So you'd better do your best to keep him under control while we're here." Anko replied with a scowl on her face. It was simply too much to handle to deal with an unruly, annoying little shit on top of Team 7's nonsense. I see. I'll do my best to make sure he doesn't bother you then." Before she and her team relaxed and waited for dinner to be served, Anko remarked simply, "Good." A few days later, with a frown, Naruto rehearsed launching ki blasts at the nearby trees, destroying them in the process. He was furious with the little punk after that rotten little bitch, Inari, said something that really riled him up. "I have no idea what it's like to suffer, so how dare that little punk say that?" I'm glad I didn't beat him up over that remark. He felt a hand on his shoulder before he could knock down any more trees. He glanced over his shoulder and saw Kale standing there, frowning carelessly at him. "And Naruto-kun, are you going to be okay?" Naruto shook his head and let out a deep sigh. I don't know, Kale-chan. What that little brat said really got to me. I'm so angry and I just don't know what to do with this feeling." Kale put her arms around Naruto tenderly and gave him a tight hug. It'll be okay and Naruto-kun. I'm here for you, and so is Kefla. You're our friend, and we understand why you're in so much pain. It'll get better with time, I'm positive. But for now, let's just sit together and talk about whatever comes to mind. It might help." Slowly nodding, the violet-eyed Saiyan gave her a gentle smile. Before he sat down against a tree, he said, "Okay, Kale-chan. As you wish." As he so frequently did with her, Kale reached down and took her hand in his when he sat down beside him. They were so engrossed in their conversation that they failed to notice Kefla standing in the shadows, watching them. They look adorable together. Does Kale seem to be falling for him? He'd better not hurt her, but I suppose it wouldn't be too bad. After a week, Team 7's nonsense did not sit well with Team 11. They had a difficult time training and hunting for Gato and his thugs in addition to trying to protect Tazuna because of them. Indeed, after what they had learned, they had finally located Gato's base of operations and dealt with him and his henchmen, killing each one without regret. They had attempted to train several of the women they had abducted to become sex slaves. They found it repulsive and were more than willing to murder the idiots who had put them in such a horrible situation. However, it appears that Zabuza and his minion were unaware of the death of Gato and his people. As a result, Zabuza and his apprentice or whatever the hell she was, they had no idea had shown up on the unfinished bridge, ready to battle to the death. Since Tazuna's family was safe, especially with Yakumo watching over them in case something went wrong, Anko and the rest of Team 11 got ready to fight their enemies. But before they could engage in combat, Sasuke rushed Zabuza's apprentice and yelled that he would murder the androgynous individual. After they started fighting, Sasuke was soon trapped in a dome of ice mirrors while Zabuza's apprentice used several Senbon to nail the final Uchiha, causing him to scream in agony and annoyance. Even though there was a lot of mist surrounding them, Kakashi defied orders and engaged Zabuza in a lethal duel, fighting on essentially equal terms. TCH, should have known they'd pull this shit. Hokage-sama's going to hear about this. Anko grumbled. She would have heard Kale say something, but then she was in the dome of ice mirrors, with multiple Senbon piercing her body. After coughing up some blood, she fell to her knees and attempted to remove some of the Senbon from her body, but she was having a lot of trouble even moving her arms. She collapsed to the side, struggling to breathe and closing her eyes as she started to lose consciousness. Kefla and Naruto experienced an unfathomable surge of rage upon witnessing this. As their power grew, they both started to scream out in anger, glaring from the ice user to Sasuke, who was grinning at what he had done. You son of a bitch. Kale, ARRRRGH. Kefla cried out as her power surged. As his rage drove him, Naruto felt a tremendous power accumulating inside of him as Kefla started to change. He yelled angrily, I'll kill you, Sasuke Uchiha. How dare you do that to Kale-chan? Sasuke watched in terror as their power increased steadily. He started to slowly back away as their eyes turned blue and their hair turned golden, attempting to avoid suffocating from the strong emotion he was experiencing from the two of them. What are they? Will I actually die here? Yes, being Sasuke right now wasn't good. They were relieved to see the ice user attempting to assist Kale when they turned to look at her again. Die, Sasuke Uchiha, they yelled as they turned back to face Sasuke. Haku scowled as she examined the injured adolescent before her. Haku deactivated her technique as soon as her opponent used such a cowardly strategy to avoid her attack, causing the ice mirrors surrounding her to break and fall to the ground. She had heard her teammates call her, and now she was there, watching Kale. After a few moments of carefully taking off her senbon, she grinned when Kale gasped and slowly started to sit up. Haku was keeping her down. Wait, don't try to move just yet. Let me remove the senbon. I can't believe your ally would use you as a shield to protect himself. Is that a common practice among Konoha's shinobi? Kale shook her head slowly. And no, Sasuke's, well, he's a jerk. I'm not surprised he'd do this to me. As she took out the remaining senbon, Haku remarked, I see. As she helped Kale sit up, she noticed that her teammates had changed in appearance. Any idea what's going on with those two? The Saiyan gave a headshake. No, I have no idea. It feels like they've reached some kind of new power level, but I've never even heard of something like this before. Haku asked uncertainly, well, whatever it is, it looks like they're getting ready to kill Sasuke. Should we stop them? Saiyan, who was kind, shook her head. No, if we get in their way now, who knows what would happen? They might target you as well as Sasuke. Haku nodded her head in comprehension, but she scowled at this. Of course, I just hope they don't get in trouble if they do kill him. Although she sounded a little uncertain, Kale stated, I think Hokage-sama would understand. Though, the problem is with the council. They're a bit of a pain, from what Naruto-kun's told us. Before the two of them fell silent, Haku said, I see. Kakashi and Zabuza halted their duel and turned to observe what was happening as they sensed the power emanating from the two furious Saiyans. Kakashi was ready to stop the Saiyans when he noticed that they were concentrating on his favorite pupil. And where do you think you're going, Kakashi? You aren't running away from our duel, are you? I'm going to save my student from a couple of traitors. If you try to stop me, I'll cut you down where you stand. The Sharingan wielder said, glaring at Zabuza. Zabuza raised his eyebrows at this and inquired, traitors? You're calling them traitors? That little runt of a Uchiha used a fellow Konoha shinobi to take Haku's attack for him. If anyone's a traitor, it's that little bitch. But let me guess, you like sucking his dick and stroking his ego, don't you? You have absolutely no intention of disciplining that little shit for what he's done, do you? TCH, you're more pathetic than I thought. I think I'd be doing the world a favor by getting rid of you, Kakashi. Kakashi snarled and used the replacement technique to switch places with Sakura, leaving her at Zabuza's mercy while glancing over his shoulder at Sasuke and the enraged Saiyans. He moved quickly in front of Sasuke, glaring at the two Super Saiyans while holding a pair of kunai in a backhand grip. Stop right there, I can't let you kill Sasuke-kun. At this, Naruto growled and disappeared in a flash of movement before Kakashi could react. Yes, his Sharingan allowed him to see Naruto's direction, but merely anticipating an attack and actually avoiding it were two completely different things. Kakashi winced in pain as Naruto slammed his fist into the side of his head, sending him flying into the side of the bridge. Fucking hell. With the path clear now, Kefla held up her hand palm out and charged up a big ki blast. She said sweetly, Oh Sasuke, die for me, will you? Before launching her attack at the terrified Uchiha. Kakashi attempted to move to shield his pupil, but Naruto stepped in front of him and sent the Jonin hurtling through the railing and into the ground below with a strong ki blast to the gut. Sorry Cyclops, but I'm afraid I can't have you getting in the way. Sasuke harmed Kale-chan. She is very dear to me and I refuse to let her assailant go unpunished. Sakura had, regrettably, rushed over and shoved her beloved, Sasuke-kun, out of the way, allowing the Saiyan's ki blast to go full force. Kefla growled as the pinkett flew off and tumbled on the ground for a considerable distance. Kefla looked at Sasuke and smiled, saying, "But maybe death is too kind for you. So, how about I just end your career as a shinobi, Staring with those precious eyes of yours. Stupid bitch, she'll be lucky if she's still alive after that." Sasuke's eyes widened, and he turned to flee, only to find himself facing Naruto. "Where do you think you're going, asshole? Do you really think you can escape two pissed off Saiyan warriors?" At first, Sasuke thought, what the fuck is a Saiyan? But before he could think about that, he felt a sharp object against his cheek. He felt the chill of death creep down his spine as he followed the blade to the hand that held it, then followed the arm up to the face. Kefla was grinning savagely while holding a kunai against his cheek. Please. Naruto sneered. He said, "Please, now you're begging us not to hurt you. Pathetic, Sasuke." He then nodded to Kefla and pulled out a kunai. "Kefla-chan, hold him still, would you?" Naruto thanked her after she nodded and secured Sasuke's head firmly before he gradually started to remove Sasuke's eyes. Sasuke continued to scream while everyone on the bridge listened. It was easy for them to see blood dripping from his cheeks. After cutting out Sasuke's eyes, Naruto threw them up and down in his hand, crushed them, and threw what was left of them over the side of the bridge, allowing the fragments to drop into the water below. "There we go. That gets rid of your precious Sharingan eyes. Now, should we cripple you? That's a hard decision to make. Kefla-chan, should we break his spine and paralyze him from the waist down? What do you think?" Kefla was about to respond when Kale and Haku approached them. "Please, that's enough, Kefla-chan, Naruto-kun. I don't want to see you become monsters like he and his team are. Minus Yakumo-chan, of course." Kale begged. Naruto and Kefla gaped at Kale for a second before giving her a firm embrace. Naruto said, "Thank Kami, you're okay." Kefla inspected her sister figure for any damage beyond what she could initially see and said, "We were so worried about you. Are you alright, Kale?" Haku grinned at them after taking off her mask. "She'll be just fine. I still can't believe that jerk swapped places with her like that." Naruto sighed and said, "It's not really surprising. Sasuke is that much of a dick." After a moment, he examined himself and then Kefla, realizing for the first time how different he felt and how different she looked. "What I really want to know is what the heck happened to us. I felt so furious and then I was like this." Kefla glanced over at Naruto and nodded in agreement. She smiled at Naruto and said, "You have to admit, the new look suits you. Anyways, same thing happened with me. I felt this uncontrollable rage overtake me and then, not quite sure how to phrase it. I feel strong, kinda like I could take on a damn army or something." Naruto remarked, "Same here. It feels amazing. At the same time though, it feels like there's a constant drain on my energy. It's not much, but still before transforming into a different form." Kefla scowled briefly as Naruto regained her composure before turning to face her hands. When she glared at Sasuke, she balled them into fists and said, "I feel it too. It's not bothering me, but it's still there. But right now, I'm more concerned with Mr. Asshole over there. I still want to kill the punk for what he did to Kale." Kale scowled and gave Kefla a hug. "Let it go, sister. He's not worth sullying your hands over. Besides, Naruto-kun told us before that Sasuke is beloved by the village. It's bad enough that his eyes have been removed. It'll just paint a target on your backs. Then there's Hera," Kale said, turning to Sakura. "I think she's dead. That's not going to sit well with those in charge. The same could be said about her parents." Despite this, Kefla sneered and shut down. She sighed, glancing at Sakura's motionless body, and approached the fallen girl. She knelt down, checked for a pulse, and scowled when none was found. "Yeah, this bitch is dead. She shouldn't have given her life for an asshole like that, though. Pity." At this point, Kakashi approached and observed the condition of his two genin. Damn you both. I swear you'll pay for what you've done." Anko decided to take advantage of this opportunity to approach Kakashi and deck him, sending him to the ground. "No, they won't. Hokage-sama will hear about what you three did, and when he does, you'd best be prepared for when he tears into your ass. You're in deep shit, Kakashi, and you'll be lucky if you get to keep what remains of your team. And I've already told you before, I'll be the one to discipline my team if need be. And right now, I don't see a need to. After all, you disobeyed orders, both of you did. Then Sasuke used Kale-chan to take a hit for him. That's the kind of behavior I'd expect from a coward like him. If he was allowed to, he would have used those eyes of his against the village, given enough time. I'd say he got his just desserts. Sakura is an unfortunate casualty, but she chose to give her life to save a scumbag like Sasuke. Then there's you, Kakashi. Not only did you disobey orders, but you attempted to attack my genin as well. You even replaced yourself with Sakura in your attempt to get to Sasuke in time to save him. You're damn lucky Zabuza didn't just kill her to prove a point to you. Then again, you don't seem to give a shit about anyone on your team besides Sasuke. For your traitorous actions here, I have every right to kill you. But I'm not going to. I'd rather see what Hokage-sama does to you. Kakashi scowled at her and replied, "You're the traitor here, Anko. You allowed your genin to disable Sasuke-kun and murder Sakura in cold blood. You know how important Sasuke-kun is to the village. Besides that, how is he supposed to continue with his career if he's unable to see? On top of that, his usefulness to the village depended on him awakening the Sharingan. Now he's pretty much useless. Best we can hope for now is that he can pass the Sharingan on to his children and raise them right." Anko shook her head in disappointment and let out a sigh. You act as if Sasuke is some all-important figure in Konoha. When in truth, he's actually nothing special. They were using him to further their own goals. Besides that, Sasuke was a flight risk and would have gladly abandoned the village if it meant he could gain power enough to kill his brother. This should hopefully teach Sasuke a valuable lesson. But I highly doubt he'll learn it. Zabuza approached, accompanied by Haku, before Kakashi could protest. I'm disappointed in you, Kakashi of the Sharingan. Even as wicked as I am, I would never have stooped so low. I expected better of a shinobi of your caliber. When I saw you replace yourself with that girl, I took pity on her instead of cutting her down like I suppose you expected of me. Because of her sacrifice, your precious Uchiha is still alive. If he's any good, he'll learn to make do without those Sharingan eyes of his. Just because someone is blind doesn't mean they can't be a good shinobi. Anko frowned as she turned away from Kakashi and toward Zabuza. I assume this means you're not interested in fighting us anymore. After shaking his head, Zabuza gestured toward Kale. While you were busy torturing that snot-nosed brat, this one told Haku about Gato's death and she proceeded to tell me. If I'm not getting paid, then there's no point in fighting. Besides that, I'm sick of all of it. I'm tired of fighting and killing and working for scumbags like Gato. I'm trying to decide on something, but I need to ask you a few questions. First off, is everyone in your village like those pricks? He asked, pointing to Kakashi and Sasuke. Anko shook her head and scoffed. There's plenty of idiots, sure, but you'll find idiots like that everywhere. The majority of shinobi in our village though are alright. Hokage-sama's okay too. He was kinda iffy, I guess, for a while, but he seems to be getting some of his spark back, little by little. But yeah, not everyone is like these idiots. Good to know. Second question. Would the Hokage accept the two of us into the village? Like I said, I'm tired of this life. It's no way to live, especially not for Haku. I know she looks up to me and loves me regardless of what I choose to do, but I can't help but worry for her. So, would we be welcome there? Sneered Kakashi, as if I'd let you anywhere near Konoha. As Kakashi screamed in agony, Anko kicked him in the nuts. A pleasant smile later appeared on her face as she turned back to Zabuza. Ignoring the idiot, if you were willing to join our village, I'm sure Hokage-sama would love to have you. It'd be great if you wanted to join the Shinobi Corps, but I'd understand if you declined to do so. I'm sure the life of a missing nin can't have been easy. After a brief glance at Kakashi, Zabuza turned to face Anko. He chose to just go with the flow, stunned by what he had just seen. Okay, so that's a thing. Anyways, I'm really just looking for a place to set down roots, sort of. So long as Haku is well taken care of, then I'm fine. She's like a daughter to me and I want to see her happy. So I'll go to Konoha with you and see if it's the kind of place I'd like Haku to live in. If I don't like what I see, then I'll just leave. Simple as that. Kefla squinted at the man while crossing her arms over her chest. As long as she doesn't try to hurt Kale again, I'm good, she said, gesturing with her thumb at Haku. Haku looked at him and replied, I wasn't aiming to hurt her. I wasn't even aiming to kill that jerk. I'd never have hurt Kale if not for that cowardly tactic Sasuke deployed. Kefla let out a sigh and gave Haku a sardonic look. I was kidding. Did you really think I was serious? With a small smile, Kale gave Haku a shoulder pat. Sorry Haku-san. Kefla was only teasing you. I promise. After a moment of hesitation, Haku sighed and shook her head. It's okay. I'm grateful that you don't blame me for what happened to Kale. I appreciate it. Looking from them to Sasuke, Kefla remarked, meh, nothing to get all worked up about. Him though, I still feel like killing the little punk, but whatever. What do you say we help Tazuna finish up this bridge so we can go back home, huh? Naruto remarked, it seems like a good plan to me. He turned to Tazuna and asked, since your helpers are gone, what do you say to allowing us to work on the bridge for you? If it helps, I can create a small army of shadow clones to assist us and make things go faster. After a brief glance between them, Tazuna turned his attention to some areas of his bridge that needed to be fixed before they could move forward with construction. Just so long as you help me fix this mess that you people created, I'll take whatever help I can get from you. Naruto laughed a little uneasily as he looked in the direction of where he had blasted Kakashi. Before raising his hands into a single-handed seal and calling forth roughly 20 shadow clones, he said, yeah, sorry about that. Oh well, alright, give us our orders Tazuna and we'll do what we can for ya. Thanks kid. Alright folks, here's what I need you to do. After 3 weeks, a day after the events on the bridge, Sakura's death had been discussed by Yakumo and Team 11. At that time, Naruto had acknowledged that, despite his dislike for her, he didn't despise her to the extent that he wished her dead. Even though he still wished he could have killed Sasuke rather than crippling him, the death of a classmate just didn't feel right to him. Kefla had to acknowledge that anyone who was willing to jump in front of one of Sakura's key blasts was deserving of her respect, even though the other Saiyans didn't know her well enough to pass judgment. That was impressive in and of itself, and she did it to save someone she cared about. But aside from feeling sorry for Sakura, Kale didn't really have any thoughts on the matter. Sasuke and Kakashi had made the decision to isolate themselves, avoiding contact with Team 11 at all costs. Kakashi had done everything in his power to assist Sasuke, but Sasuke was still so incensed about what had happened to him that he would always shut Kakashi down. Anko had fulfilled her pledge to train Yakumo whenever she had the time. The Kurama heiress had asked Anko to consider including her on Team 11, but Anko had acknowledged that she wasn't sure if she could keep up with the 3 Saiyans or even if that would be feasible. Yakumo persisted, though, and eventually persuaded Anko to give it a shot. But now that they were back in Konoha, the villagers were appalled at Sasuke's condition. In addition to that, they noticed that one member of Team 7 was missing. As he walked to the Hokage Tower with his friends and teammates, Naruto flipped them off and scoffed when they started staring at him accusingly. Sasuke wouldn't let Kakashi just carry him around, so Kakashi was left to lead him after them. Zabuza and Haku were unable to ignore the glares aimed at Naruto as they strolled. Geez kid, the fuck did you do to these people to make them hate you so much? After giving Zabuza a quick glance, Naruto turned back to face the future. Not a damn thing, Zabuza. They've hated me from the moment I was born. And trust me, I'm not kidding about that. After a brief moment of widening, Zabuza nodded in comprehension. He eyed Naruto curiously and said, I see. Only a few reasons I can think of for why that'd be. Either you're a Jinchuriki, or something else is at play here. So which is it? I'm a Jinchuriki, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, to be exact. That should tell you everything you need to know, Naruto said with a dry laugh. The swordsman gave a pitying wince. Damn kid, you have my sympathies. Meh, I'm used to it by now. Now I just don't give a crap. And I'm strong enough to crush anyone that tries any kind of shit against me, so they have a real reason to fear pissing me off now. Naruto replied with a shrug of his shoulders. As they made their way into the Hokage Tower and up the stairs to the Hokage's office, Anko remarked, enough. We're here. They went into the Hokage's office and went up to him, ignoring the secretary. Hokage-sama, Teams 11 and 7 reporting in. Well, one member of Team 7 at least. Kakashi and Sasuke will be here soon. Hiruzen scowled as he glanced at Yakumo and the other members of Team 11 before focusing on Zabuza and his apprentice. It seems you've got quite a lot you need to tell me. Not the least of which is what happened to Sakura. Anko rubbed the back of her head and sighed. Yeah, to put it bluntly Hokage-sama, things went to shit. When we caught up to them, Kakashi was pinned down by Zabuza here and Sakura and Sasuke weren't faring too well either. Kefla took care of Zabuza, but Kakashi was not happy about me taking charge of the mission and insulted each of my genin, treating them as if they were trash. Pissed me the hell off. Anyways, as per your orders, we hunted down Gato and ended him and his men. Kakashi, Sasuke, and Sakura were real pains in the ass the entire time though. Trying to interfere with us in our mission and generally just making life difficult. Sadly, it seemed Zabuza and Haku hadn't learned about Gato's demise, so they showed up later when we went to the bridge. I had ordered Kakashi and his team to hang back so I could talk to Zabuza if and when he appeared again. Unfortunately. At this point, Kakashi and Sasuke entered and gave Anko a fierce look. He pointed to Sasuke's empty eye sockets and said, "Hokage-sama, Naruto and Kefla killed Sakura and removed Sasuke's Sharingan. They have to be punished for what they've done. Your orders were bullshit and you know it." Zabuza was an enemy, and so was Haku. Anko palmed her face and sighed. Hokage-sama, if you'll allow me to explain the situation." Sasuke snapped at him. "What's there to explain? You were right there and you let them take out my eyes. And if that worthless bitch hadn't jumped in the way, I'd be dead now, no thanks to you." With a growl, Naruto struck Sasuke in the face, causing him to fall to the ground and break his nose. "That stupid bitch, as you call her, loved you. She practically worshipped the ground you walked on. But more than that, she was your teammate and she sacrificed herself to save you. And this is how you thank her. Fuck you, Sasuke." Hiruzen yelled, "Enough," to get everyone's attention. "Anko, finish your report. I want to know the truth about what happened in the Land of Waves." "Of course, Hokage-sama. As I said before, Kakashi and Sasuke disobeyed my orders and proceeded to attack Zabuza and his accomplice, Haku. Sasuke was losing his battle against Haku, and when it looked as if he was about to die, he replaced himself with Kale-chan, leaving her to take the blows that were meant for him." Glancing at Kakashi and Sasuke, Hiruzen's eyes narrowed. "I see. Continue, Anko." "Yes, sir. As expected, Naruto-kun and Kefla-chan became enraged by what Sasuke had just done to their dear friend. Their rage led to them unlocking some new form, attaining more power than they had before. They proceeded to advance on Sasuke, ready to kill him. Kakashi, looking angry at her fellow Jonin sensei, she continued to speak, replaced himself with Sakura so he could get to Sasuke before they could kill him. He was willing to sacrifice Sakura to save Sasuke. Hiruzen pinned Kakashi with a glare and a concentrated outburst of his powerful killing intent, saying, "There's more you haven't told me yet, Anko. I'll deal with them later. Right now I want to know what happened. So please continue." Naruto-kun moved faster than Kakashi could react and knocked Kakashi away. When he prepared to attack my genin again, Naruto-kun struck him again, sending him flying. Meanwhile, Kefla-chan fired one of her energy attacks at Sasuke. Her attack would have killed him, but Sakura, in a noble act of sacrifice, took the blow that was meant for him. She died as a result of this. I have her body sealed inside of this scroll. Anko explained as she raised a scroll. Anyways, the two of them decided that death was too good for Sasuke and proceeded to tear out his eyes and destroyed them. The two of them likely would have done more, but Kale walked up to them and asked them to stop. Kakashi approached my team and tried to tear into them for what they had done, but I told him again that if anyone was going to reprimand my team for what they did, it would be me. At the time, I didn't see any reason to do so. I still don't. Anyways, Zabuza and Haku approached us at that point and we talked for a while before he made the decision to come to Konoha with us so he could see if he would like to settle down here. Hiruzen gave a sympathetic nod before meeting Zabuza's gaze. "I see. Thank you, Anko. Zabuza, allow me to officially welcome you to the village of Konohagakure. If you decide that you would like to settle here, I have a favor to ask of you. I'll discuss that with you later however. Right now, I need to figure out what to do with these two," he said, focusing on Kakashi and Sasuke. "Kakashi, as of this moment, you are removed as sensei of Team 7. You will never be allowed to take on another genin team. I trusted you to do right by your team and you failed me. You've also proven yourself to be incapable of following simple orders given by a superior. I placed Anko in charge of the mission and entrusted her with a secondary task, eliminating Gato and his men. From what I understand, you and your team interfered in their mission and could have cost the lives of every genin there. As of this moment, you are demoted to the rank of Chunin without ever being given the chance to be promoted back to Jonin. You're lucky I don't demote you to the rank of genin for what you've done." Hiruzen frowned and turned to face Sasuke. "As for you, Sasuke Uchiha, your fate will be decided by myself and the council. You intentionally tried to sacrifice a fellow Konoha shinobi and you will suffer the price of such an action. Anbu, lock him in a cell until it's time to deal with the little prick. As for you, Kakashi, I expect you to report for your new assignment of watching the gate all day, every day. You'll be doing that for at least a month before I determine if you're capable of doing anything more. Now Shu, just your presence is disturbing me. You senile old bastard, I did nothing to deserve this kind of treatment, yelled Sasuke with a frown. The Hokage gave the blind Uchiha a ferocious glare before dismissively waving his hand while one of his Anbu carried Sasuke away. He scowled at Kakashi and remarked mockingly, I see you were working hard on his arrogant attitude. Well done. At this, Kakashi scowled but remained silent. Rather, he pivoted and departed from the Hokage's office. Hiruzen reached up and rubbed the bridge of his nose after he had left. Yakumo-chan, I'm sorry. It looks like I'll have to put you in the reserves until a new team can be found for you. Enko gave him a look while nervously rubbing the back of her head. Actually Hokage-sama, Yakumo-chan was hoping she could be placed on my team. What do you say? The third scowled thoughtfully as he gave Yakumo a long look. Hama, after giving it some thought, he said, do you think you can keep up with those three? I warn you now that they are not your average person. I assure you that it will be difficult to keep up with them. Yakumo gazed into the Hokage's eyes with, Hokage-sama, I am quite positive that I can be a huge benefit to Team 11. I know that they're, different, and though I don't quite know the full truth about them, I'm positive that I'll be fine with them. I'll train harder than ever if it means I can be with my friends. Hiruzen closed his eyes and plunged into his thoughts while clasping his fingers together. He eventually opened his eyes once more and gave Yakumo a stern look. If I place you on Team 11, the team will be doing nothing but D-rank missions for a month. During that time, I expect you to acclimate into the team and become a true member of the team. I'll be watching to make sure you can mesh well with the team. If I determine that you're just not capable of keeping up with them, I'll be placing you in the reserves as I originally planned. Is that understood? Yes, sir, I won't let you down, Hokage-sama, Yakumo said, nodding. See that you don't. Turning his focus to Zabuza, he said, seeing as you're new here and don't yet trust the people, I'll allow you to live with Naruto-kun in his home for the time being. After all, you at least trust him and his friends, so it seems like the best option. I'm trusting you not to betray my trust, do you understand me? Should I determine you are a threat, I'll show you why I was called the god of shinobi. With a nod of comprehension, Zabuza sweated slightly at the threat. Of course, Hokage-sama. I'll behave, you have my word on that. Besides, I'd never put Haku at risk like that. Good. Now, I need to call the council together. I want you all to be there with me when I discuss what's happened with them. I warn you now, do not rise to their bait. They will likely say some harsh things to the lot of you once they learn what's happened, but I expect you to remain calm and not react. Do you understand me? Hiruzen said prior to motioning his Anbu to leave and gather the members of the council. The Konoha shinobi all cried out, yes, Hokage-sama. Together, Enko said, I promise that we'll behave ourselves. The Hokage got up from his comfortable chair and led them out of his office and into the council chambers, saying, good. Follow me. Hiruzen arrived, sat down, and gestured for Team 11 and others to settle in. He then called forth another Anbu and gave him the order to present Sasuke to them. A few minutes later, the different council members started to arrive. Hiruzen waited a moment longer after everyone had arrived and seated themselves. He dispatched an Anbu to retrieve Sasuke Uchiha, and it returned quickly with the runt. Sasuke was pinned to his knees in front of the council by the Anbu. Upon witnessing this, the council members became extremely confused. However, the elders and civilians were incensed at what they witnessed and cried out in outrage when they noticed that he was missing his eyes. One of the civilians exclaimed, "What the hell is the meaning of this?" Hiruzen squinted at the bystanders before turning to face his former teammates. He ordered everyone to be silent immediately. All will be made clear in due time. First things first, you need to know that this is not a simple meeting to discuss what has happened to Sasuke Uchiha. I have called you all here to determine his punishment for his actions on his recent mission to the Land of Waves. Hiruzen waited for the inevitable explosion while letting this statement sink in. He used his impressive killing intent to slam every council member, including the clan heads, when they started to shout out their objections. They fell silent as a result, enabling him to go on. As I was saying before you interrupted me, Sasuke's actions in his recent mission warrant punishment of some kind. As you can see, he has had his eyes removed and destroyed. What you don't yet know is why. So, allow me to explain the situation to you. Over a month ago, Sasuke decided to demand a higher rank mission from me after only a short time of doing D ranks. He wanted something more worth his time, claiming that a Uchiha elite doesn't need to do chores. I was initially inclined to decline his request and tell him to fuck off, but then his sensei, Kakashi Hatake, decided to push the matter even further and claimed that his team was ready for a C-rank mission. As frustrating as it was for me, I decided to humor them, at least in the hopes that they'd learn their folly while on said mission. Anyways, shortly after leaving the village, Team 7 encountered the Demon Brothers of Kurigakure. While they were able to dispatch their foes, the mission at that point turned into at least a B rank with the very likely possibility of turning into an A rank or worse. It was a mission they simply were not ready for. When I got Kakashi's report about what had happened, I sent Team 11, consisting of Jonin Anko Mitarashi and Genin's Naruto Uzumaki, Kefla, and Kale to back them up. However, because I couldn't trust Kakashi, I placed Anko in charge of the mission. I also gave them a secondary mission of hunting down Gato and ending him and his men. At this point, Hiruzen gestured to Zabuza, drawing everyone's attention to him. Unfortunately, Kakashi decided to continue with the mission instead of waiting for reinforcements to arrive. As a result, he and his team were nearly killed by Zabuza Momochi. Team 11 rescued them and took over the mission at that point. Unfortunately, Kakashi Hatake, Sasuke Uchiha, and Sakura Haruno were interfering in Team 11's mission to hunt down and deal with Gato. That's strike one against them. As anticipated, however, Kakashi Hatake and Sasuke Uchiha defied orders and began a fight between themselves and Zabuza and Haku. After killing Gato and his men and freeing the people of Waves, Teams 7 and 11 encountered Zabuza and Haku, his adopted daughter, on the bridge Tazuna was building. Unfortunately, the two of them had not learned of Gato's death and were prepared to continue with their attempts to kill the bridge builder. Anko had ordered everyone to hold their positions while she attempted to communicate with the two of them and end the conflict peacefully. That's their second setback. As the battle continued, Sasuke was on the verge of losing when Haku used her final tactic to pin him down. At this point, Sasuke substituted Team 11 member Kale-chan for himself using the replacement technique. He took the blows intended for him by using her. Kale-chan almost died as a result of what he did. He is now facing his third setback. Something inside of Naruto-kun and Kefla-chan was triggered by his actions. They were overcome by their anger, and they changed in some way, gaining more authority. In order to reach Sasuke in time to defend him, they directed their wrath towards him, but before they could murder him, Kakashi swapped himself for Sakura, leaving her at Zabuza's mercy. This is Kakashi's third strike. Just so everyone knows, Kakashi was knocked aside and was unable to assist his student. This shouldn't have to be stated. Sakura bravely jumped in front of Kefla-chan's attack to save Sasuke at the expense of her life when Kefla-chan tried to kill him with an attack. They removed Sasuke's eyes and destroyed them so they could never be used against another Konoha shinobi because they believed that death was too kind to him at this point. His willingness to go to any lengths to save himself was already clear. He clearly has no respect for anyone in this village, including myself, and no loyalty to it. Therefore, if a fellow Konoha shinobi got in his way, it's not out of the question that he would defend himself. Anyway, Sasuke disparaged Sakura and her bravery instead of paying tribute to his teammates' sacrifice. It was the same with Kakashi. With a heavy sigh, Hiruzen added, Kakashi has already been punished for his actions. This is strike 4 against them. All we have to do now is choose Sasuke's penalty. I'm really angry with him, and when he called me a senile old bastard in my office, it only made me even more angry. He is incredibly conceited, and Kakashi has clearly done nothing to control him. Now, I've thought of a way to punish Sasuke for his words and deeds, but I want to get feedback from everyone present. What do you suggest we do regarding Sasuke Uchiha now that you are aware of what transpired during their most recent mission? What? Asked Hiruzen. The civilians' first instinct was to defend Sasuke, but they all paused to consider what had just been explained to them. They scowled at Sasuke and then started talking among themselves about the situation. Eventually, they turned to the Hokage and allowed their representative to speak. Hokage-sama. We propose to seize Sasuke's possessions and donate them to the village's funds. In order to provide our shinobi force with better living conditions than some of them currently enjoy, the Uchiha compound ought to be transformed into a typical housing district. Lastly, we believe it would be prudent to have Sasuke's chakra sealed in order to stop him from attacking anyone in the future. After giving a nod, Hiruzen turned to face the clan leaders and asked, "What do you all think?" He asked. After staring at Sasuke for a while, Shibi turned to face the Hokage and said, "What the civilians have suggested has merit. I would like to add to Sasuke's punishment, though. He ought to be handled like the criminal that he is. After sealing his chakra, it seems fitting to confine him to a cell for the remainder of his life. You mentioned that Naruto and Kefla came to the conclusion that death would be too forgiving for someone like him." After acknowledging this with a nod, Hiruzen turned to the elders and asked, "What do you three think?" "We have nothing to add," Homura said, choosing to speak on their behalf. "His priceless Sharingan eyes being taken away from him is, in my opinion, enough humiliation and punishment, but I appreciate the suggestions made by the others. I suggest locking him up and discarding the key. Let him see the consequences of his actions." "Your punishment has been decided, Sasuke Uchiha," the third said, nodding once more before turning back to face Sasuke. "Your possessions will be seized and used to improve the village. Your compound will be made available to the public as a housing project for residents, particularly the Konoha shinobi. Before you are imprisoned, your chakra will also be sealed. But I have one more penalty to add. In order to rebuild the Uchiha clan from the ground up and raise them to be devout and respected members of society, your sperm will be extracted and used to impregnate willing women. They will receive the right upbringing and training to surpass the previous generation of Uchiha. Since you won't interact with any of them, you won't be able to taint them or their principles. Now, remove him, Anbu." Hiruzen sighed in frustration and shook his head in disappointment after an Anbu appeared and then vanished with Sasuke. "It's unfortunate what happened to Sakura," he said. "What happened on Team 7's mission will have to be relayed to her parents. Inoichi, I am aware that Sakura and your daughter were close. Try to explain what happened to her as simply as possible. Would you also try to help her get over her fixation on the Uchiha? She shouldn't try to free him or do anything foolish like that, in my opinion." "Of course, Hokage-sama," the blonde mindwalker said, nodding in comprehension. "However, I'm not sure how much success I'll have reaching her. So far, I've tried every possible strategy to help her stop being so fixated on that boy, but it hasn't worked. Nevertheless, I'll make every effort to reach her. She might even quit dieting and make an attempt to become a better kunoichi if I'm lucky." "We can only hope, Inoichi," Hiruzen said, shrugging his shoulders. "I'd like to end this meeting now, unless there are any more topics for discussion." At this point, Danzo moved forward and focused on the Saiyans, saying, "You mentioned that those two changed in some way. Does this imply that the boy has successfully summoned that creature's power? What about the girl? Is she also a Jinchuriki?" "Danzo, it's still forbidden to talk about the Kyuubi," the third said, glaring at him. "For daring to bring it up in front of people who don't know, I could have you put to death. Face it, Hiruzen, you're too scared of the consequences to even try to kill me," the Warhawk sneered. "Now respond to the query." Hiruzen snapped his fingers, and a group of Anbu surrounded Danzo, their blades piercing his body in many places. The Hokage's eyes narrowed suspiciously when he appeared near Homura and Kaharu without a single wound on his body, and he quickly rose from his chair, facing Danzo, and flashed through hand seals before he turned into a true flamethrower, releasing a wave of fire from his mouth. Danzo frowned as he attempted to jump out of the way, but Shikaku's shadow pinned him, and when the flames engulfed him, he had to use up another of his hidden Sharingan eyes in order to survive. Everyone saw his disfigured arm, now that the bandages had been burned off, and the Sharingan in place of his right eye when he returned this time. "Danzo, what have you done to yourself? You have no right to do this," Hiruzen asked vehemently. "Tch, your backbone has grown back. Although I had hoped it wouldn't come to this, it wasn't totally unexpected." "Allah!" Danzo started, but he screamed in pain as his arm was hit by multiple energy blasts. He looked at the girl Kefla and was about to attack her, but he stopped when he saw that she had attacked the eyes that were embedded in his arm. He looked down at them and saw that all of the Sharingan eyes had just been destroyed. "Shit," he said, then he quickly called his root soldiers to him and vanished with them, preferring to live to fight another day than die here. With a frown, Hiruzen gave his Anbu instructions to track down Danzo and stop him. He then sat down again, slammed his fist down on the table, and yelled, "Damn him." Years ago, I gave the order to disband Root. What is wrong, old-timer? Is it truly that shocking to see that he disobeyed you? Kefla asked. I think he's an absolute jerk. Particularly if he is prepared to divulge such sensitive details about Naruto-kun to people who aren't already aware of them. To stop a growing headache, the Hokage sighed and rubbed his temples. You're correct, I guess, Kefla-chan. I shouldn't be shocked that he would go to such lengths. Whatever is done, is done. All I can hope for is that the Anbu can find him and put an end to his miserable existence. In any case, how would you three react if I gave you some of Sasuke's possessions? After all, you are the one he wronged. That's okay with me, Gramps, Naruto shrugged. Even now, I still wish I had killed him. Because of what he did to Kale-chan, I'm still upset. I understand, Naruto-kun, Hiruzen said, letting out a sigh but nodding his head in comprehension. In any case, I apologize for the terrible experience you and your friends had. It was somewhat expected given what we know about Sasuke, Kefla said, adding, not your fault old-timer. Don't get me wrong, I'm furious about it, but he's just that kind of person. True enough, Hiruzen sighed. Anyway, I'm going to end this meeting now. Everyone is welcome to leave. Go home, Naruto-kun, and rest with your friends. You deserve it. After Naruto and his friends left the council chambers, Enko dismissed herself and let the group do as they pleased. Thank you Gramps, Naruto said before leaving. Kale couldn't resist reaching out and grabbing one of Naruto's and Kefla's hands as they walked, and she couldn't help but smile shyly at them both, feeling content just to be with them. You seem happy, Naruto said with a smile at Kale. What is going on? I'm just happy to be here with you both, said Kale, laughing and shaking her head. When we're together, I feel better. With a smile, Kefla squeezed Kale's hand and said, we're always going to be here for you, Kale. You had better trust it. I understand. Regards, sis. After a week, looking at the cat in her arms, Kale scowled and occasionally scratched behind its ears while gently stroking its fur, wondering what had made poor Tora flee this time. What happened to you, you little cutie? With regret, she asked. When her teammates joined her in the clearing, Tora just cuddled up to Kale and purred happily, saying, I think something happened, as she looked them in the eyes. Otherwise, Tora wouldn't have fled again. Agreed, Anko said, scowling and nodding her head. The situation is odd. As they started to head toward the Hokage Tower, Team 11 members all agreed with her. We need to talk to Madame Shijimi and try to get to the bottom of this. They arrived at the Hokage's office and found Madame Shijimi and Hiruzen Sarutobi waiting for them. Kale approached Shijimi and gave her Tora, observing as the chubby woman followed his previous instructions. Thank you for giving her back to me, Kale said. Once more. Kale smiled at Madame Shijimi and shook her head, saying, it's okay. However, I must ask, do you know what made her flee this time? I have no idea, the kind woman said with a negative shake of her head. Everything was going smoothly. Then one day she became so angry that she fled once more. I'm not sure I understand. Hokage-sama, I'm asking for permission to go on a mission to the capital with Madame Shijimi, Enko said, scowling as he turned to face the Hokage. I want to find the truth about this and determine what is causing Tora to flee once more. Given how much trouble Tora has caused in the past, I believe that someone may have done something, and I don't want to see her suffer. There is undoubtedly a problem here. At this, Hiruzen scowled and questioned, are you certain about this, Anko? Before attempting a mission like this, I would prefer that you stay and work on your teamwork for a while, as Yakumo is still new to your team. Is your team prepared for this kind of situation? With a nod, the stunning snake mistress declared, Hokage-sama, I'm absolutely certain of it. This is something we can manage without any problems. Please allow us to assist Tora and Madame Shijimi. Dear Hiruzen, if it helps you make up your mind, allow me to officially request the aid of Team 11 to find out what caused my dear Tora to run away this time, Shijimi said, turning to the third before he could respond. I want it to stop if someone is harming her or if something much more heinous is happening. I'm willing to pay a lot for Team 11's help in this case because I trust them. Team 11, your request for this mission is granted, Hiruzen said, grinning at her before turning to face the other members of the team. Make certain that you solve this mystery and put things right. Send for backup if things go wrong for any reason. Be sure to be ready for anything because I have no idea what to anticipate from a mission like this. You're fired. All right, you heard him, team. For a month, go and pack. I want everyone to be ready for anything because I have no idea how long this will take. Hurry. Before she left, Anko gave the order to pack her belongings. The capital of the Land of Fire a few days later. Meet my husband, the Land of Fire's daimyo, Team 11. You can call him Daimyo-sama or by his name, Hachibe-sama, but I just call him Sweetie. They're here to help you figure out what's wrong with Tora, Sweetie. Shijimi introduced them to her husband and said, I don't know why she ran away again. The Fire Daimyo smiled warmly at the Team 11 members and said, Welcome to the capital city of the Land of Fire, the Kasai. I am the daimyo of the Land of Fire, or Hachibe Pira as I am commonly called. Meeting people who have previously assisted my beloved wife and her cat is a pleasure. Right now, Team 11 members were kneeling in front of him with their heads bowed, which naturally annoyed Kefla, but she handled it because she understood that there were occasions to show respect, and this was unquestionably one of them. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Daimyo-sama, Anko said, gazing up into the daimyo's eyes. All I can hope for is that we can solve the problem and assist Tora. There is a real chance that someone is intentionally harming her, even though I don't like the idea. Our goal is to learn more about the situation so that we can address it. Obviously, definitely, I would be more than pleased to provide you with any assistance you may need. During your stay here, you are all welcome to use some of the guest rooms in my palace. With all the important missions you shinobi take on a daily basis, I'm sure they'll be much more comfortable than sleeping outside, as you're probably used to. At this, every Team 11 member smiled and nodded their heads in gratitude. Thank you, Daimyo-sama. Your generosity is greatly appreciated, Anko stated in a professional manner. The daimyo clapped his hands a few times and called forth a servant after saying, Very good. Will you, dear girl, lead these good people to a couple of guest rooms? Before they start their mission, they must settle in. Make sure to handle them the same way you would any other significant visitor to Kasai. Anko gestured for her genin to follow her into one of the guest rooms after the woman bowed to her leader and motioned for Team 11 to follow her. She sat down on one of the beds and gave the 4 genin a serious look before saying, Okay, we're not here to screw around. I have a feeling that we won't like what we're going to discover, and something really weird is happening. I want you all ready for battle at any moment. Our main objective is to learn more about Tora's condition. I want to monitor Madame Shijimi and the daimyo in order to accomplish this. Most of us will concentrate on observing Tora in her daily activities. While the rest of us follow Tora, 2 of you will be secretly watching the daimyo and Madame Shijimi. Just in case we need to communicate, please make sure your headsets are ready and turned on. You get it. Do you really think that Daimyo-sama or his wife might be doing something to Tora? Kale asked with a frown. I'm positive Madame Shijimi isn't doing anything to hurt Tora, Anko said, scowling as well and shaking her head. To rule her out, though, I would like to know what she does during the day and how she interacts with Tora. Since we are shinobi, Daimyo-sama are inherently wary of almost everyone. Whether intentionally or inadvertently, Daimyo-sama might be harming Tora in some way. But I seriously doubt it. However, in order to rule him out as well, I would like to know what he does during the day. Oh, and watch him carefully because he will always be protected by the 12 Guardian Ninja. They will act if they think you pose a threat to the daimyo's life. Avoid fighting with them if they come up to you. Simply explain your situation to them and hope they comprehend. Can you comprehend me? Before Yakumo posed the crucial query, so who's watching the daimyo and his wife? Each genin nodded. You're going to be watching the daimyo, Anko said, glancing at Naruto. Since you're the team's most cunning member, you ought to be able to avoid being noticed. Naruto-kun, just exercise extra caution. Of course, Naruto said, nodding in comprehension before slamming a fist into his chest. Anko-sensei, just let me handle it. All right, Kale-chan, Anko said, turning to face Kale, you will be observing her all day long due to your rapport with Madame Shijimi. Stay out of sight, please. Indeed, Anko-sensei, I will not disappoint you. All right. The rest of us will be observing Tora from various angles. We will be monitoring the area for any suspicious activity. We must observe what Tora does on a typical day. If something seems off, or if she's getting into something she shouldn't be, or if someone is hurting her, we'll record it. We'll step in and protect that cat if something seems off because I want to make sure Tora is safe. Anko-sensei, of course. We won't let you down, the genin cried. All right, kids, let's go, Anko said, nodding her head in agreement. Right now, the mission has started. Let's protect that feline. As he observed the daimyo going about his daily business, Naruto scowled. Even though he was a very busy man, he clearly gave his people and his country his all. He was genuinely somewhat astounded that the man had maintained his sanity throughout it all based on what he had witnessed thus far. In the 12 Guardian Ninja, he also had some incredible protection. But now that he considered it, it was kind of weird. Where were all the others, since he had only seen a handful? He dismissed that idea and turned back to the daimyo and his present companion. It appeared that he was having some kind of meeting with his advisors. It was a fairly simple affair, and he was getting a little tired of hearing about politics and the overall state of the cities and the village of Konohagakure's finances. He was intermittently listening to the conversation. Naruto was more concerned with determining whether he posed any threat to Tora. He hadn't spoken to the little hellion yet, and the cat hadn't been mentioned either. But suddenly, Naruto felt a lot of negative emotions practically roll off one of the daimyo's advisors as they talked about whatever it was they were talking about. Additionally, Naruto was certain that he saw the advisor's face briefly change into a frown, if he wasn't deluding himself. He was certain that he would have missed it if he had blinked. As it was, he wondered if he was dreaming, but he brushed that idea aside. His eyes narrowed in suspicion as he closely observed the advisor, attempting to gauge the man's character. Naruto knew this man was bad news, but the daimyo didn't seem to notice anything strange about him. He simply didn't feel comfortable with it, so he thought it would be wise to monitor this advisor in particular. He eventually slipped away without anyone noticing and touched his headset with a finger. "Sensei, I don't know if this has anything to do with the mission or not, but one of the daimyo's advisors is practically radiating ill intent. It's got me worried for the daimyo's safety, and for that of his wife. Something just doesn't feel right, Hurriya." Over the radio, Enko's voice could be heard. "That's not good. Change of plans then. Naruto, I want you to shadow that man and see what he's really up to. Contact us when you have some more information. Kale, how are things on your end?" Kale's voice was heard saying, "Madam Shijimi seems to be going through her daily routine so far. She's talked to herself a bit about how worried she is for Tora, but she really hasn't been up to much. So far, it seems perfectly normal." For a while, Enko was heard humming in contemplation. "All right, Kale, I want you to continue shadowing Madam Shijimi. I want to know more about her interactions with the people. I have my suspicions, but I want concrete evidence before I rush to any judgments. We'll continue following Tora. That damn cat's smart. She's already sensed us a few times, but she has yet to run into any form of trouble. Whatever's troubling her, I want to get to the bottom of it. Keep us posted, Naruto, Kale." Naruto responded with a nod, even though his teammates couldn't see him. He slipped back into the shadows and made his way back to the meeting room, flinching when one of the daimyo's invisible bodyguards almost saw him. When it came to their abilities, Enko-sensei wasn't kidding. However, if they wished to maintain both their jobs and the safety of the daimyo himself, they had better be damn good. Naruto turned to face the advisor, paying close attention to his hands and body language. The daimyo clearly didn't appeal to this man. No, it went beyond that. He detested the man. In a matter of seconds, Naruto saw his fists clench and unclench. As he observed this, Naruto frowned and glanced at the daimyo's guards. This man may need to consider hiring better protection if they haven't already noticed his odd behavior. Naruto observed the daimyo and his guards leaving the room shortly after the meeting ended. After giving it some thought, Naruto made a shadow clone and sent it to keep an eye on the daimyo just to be sure. He looked back at the advisors and took a careful look around the small group of men and women. The others appeared to be fairly normal, complaining about their work, making fun of the daimyo, and other such things. However, that one isn't the same. Naruto kept a close eye on the advisor he was supposed to watch as he rose and walked out of the room, trailing him. Naruto could hear him complaining to himself about something as he moved through the corridors. Naruto listened to the man's words as he slipped closer without being noticed. The man continued, pausing to look around in a panic. "Damn that man, he's fucking insufferable, and that wife of his is no better. Always doting on that damn cat. I swear, that fucking cat is treated better than any of their subjects." "If only he said. Who's there?" Wondering whether he had been discovered, Naruto scowled. But as soon as two masked shinobi appeared in front of the man, his fears were immediately allayed. The black-haired teenager stayed hidden and listened as they started talking. "Oh, it's just you two. Stop sneaking around like that all the time. You'll end up giving me a heart attack at this rate. I'm not a young person anymore, after all. The advisor replied. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Have you killed that damn cat yet? Not yet. That cat's smarter than we gave it credit for. It slipped away to Konohagakure before we could kill it. You never did tell us though. Why do you want the cat dead so badly? Said one of the masked ninja, who was clearly a man. The advisor frowned deeply but initially remained silent. Rather, he indicated a door close by. Not out here. It's too open and those damn Konoha shinobi could be anywhere. We'll talk in there. Naruto had to control his rage to avoid being caught in the act. I take it that these men were hired to murder Tora. I must hear more. After a brief moment of waiting, he crept into the room, remained hidden in the shadows, and entered without being seen or heard. Okay, you jerks, let's listen to your opinions. The advisor turned to his hired assistant and gave an explanation. You asked why I want the cat dead. Tora's been foiling every attempt I've made to kill the daimyo and his wife. You'd think with how much she hurt that dumb cat that it would be happy to let that fat bitch die. I've tried numerous times to poison Shijimi to get her out of the picture, but that cat always found a way to save her. Nothing has ever worked and it's all that damn cat's fault. They may not realize it, but their stupid cat has been saving their lives for 2 years now. Now do you understand why I hired you to kill that goddamn cat? It's in the way of my mission. When he heard this, the black-haired Saiyan frowned. I believe that I now have more than enough information to resolve this. What's this about a mission, though? You've never mentioned a mission before. Did somebody send you to assassinate the fire daimyo and his wife? Was a question that one of the masked shinobi seemed to have in mind. The advisor grinned and replied, I didn't hire you to just so you could ask questions of me. But, if it'll help my cause any, then yes, I was sent here to get close to the daimyo so I could act as my country's spy. I was then given orders to assassinate the daimyo and his family, that stupid little cat included. I'm only following the lightning daimyo's orders here. I just hate having to play nice with that idiotic fire daimyo and his Madam Shijimi is just a hideous. She's annoying and obnoxious too. Always doting on that fucking cat. How that thing didn't die before that Konoha genin showed her how to care for it properly is beyond me. I wish it had, because then my mission wouldn't have turned into such a shitstorm. We understand now, the male masked ninja said, frowning behind his mask. I just hope your daimyo knows what he's doing here, because this whole situation could go very wrong for him. Before she and her partner vanished from the room, the female ninja said, we'll take care of the cat. You just prepare yourself to take the daimyo's life. Good luck. Before leaving the room as well, the advisor muttered to himself, damn shinobi. They'd better just do their damn jobs and leave me the fuck alone afterwards. Now that he was alone, Naruto tapped his headset and resumed talking to his teammates. If you can hear me, I've got new information that proves we're dealing with someone dangerous. Tora's in grave danger, as are the fire daimyo and his family. I'd ask if we could meet up, but 2 unidentified shinobi, a masked man and woman, are hunting Tora. On top of that, the man I told you about before. He's out to kill the fire daimyo and his family. Tora's been foiling all of his attempts to kill them, however, and that's why he's hired those 2 to kill Tora. I have more information on the subject, but I think the mission is now time sensitive. We have to deal with those 2 shinobi to save Tora, and we need to take out the fire daimyo's advisor. What are your orders, Enko-sensei? Naruto-kun, I want you to capture the spy. If he resists, break him. We need him alive so we can extract the necessary information from him. Kale-chan, inform your target that she and her husband are in danger. Hide them somewhere safe. Kefla, Yakumo, and I will deal with the shinobi after Tora. Good luck and be careful everyone. Enko said via radio. Before cutting the transmission and starting to look for his target once more, Naruto said, Roger that. This could go very wrong if those shinobi are from Kumo. If they were just missing Nin, everything would be so much easier, but something feels wrong with this. Enko. As Tora turned another corner, Enko frowned. In addition to knowing that she had followers, the cat was undoubtedly aware of her destination. To put it another way, Tora was an extremely perceptive and intelligent feline. She hurried after the cat and saw it stop after a while, then start hissing and growling at what seemed to be nothing. Enko told herself and her 2 teammates, looks like they're here. The masked shinobi materialized in front of Kefla and Yakumo, their weapons drawn. As she punched the palm of her hand, the group's lone Saiyan smiled malevolently. Oh, this is gonna be fun. She was told to stand down for the moment by Anko, who held up a hand. She took a few steps in the direction of the masked adversaries and saw Tora rush behind Yakumo, its fur standing on end. Monitoring their potential adversaries, the snake mistress inquired, "Why would you take on a mission such as this? You've been hired to kill an animal. Doesn't that make you feel sick inside? Shinobi such as yourselves should know better than to accept a mission such as this. It's like murdering a child, it shouldn't be done. Don't you have any shame?" The male shinobi nodded his head and said, "We do what we are ordered. It is as simple as that. If that means we have to kill an animal simply for existing, then so be it. Whether we like it or not has no meaning." Yakumo looked at him and scowled deeply. But she was drawn to something about his female partner. She narrowed her eyes at the woman in the mask and said, "Sure, you may feel that way, but what about her?" For a few moments, the masked woman flinched and gave her companion a suspicious look. She looked down, then reached up and took off her mask. "I don't like this. It's just a cat. Assassinating the fire daimyo is one thing, I'd be able to do that. Buddha, not this cat. I can't do it." The man in the mask frowned behind it. "Yugito, you do realize what will happen to you if you fail to follow through with Reikage-sama's orders. If you do this, you will be considered an enemy. I don't care if you hate the very idea of killing this cat. If need be, I'll do it myself. You just focus on killing those three. We can't have any witnesses to what we're about to do. Or rather, what I'm about to do." The now-named Yugito glared at her partner so fiercely that it was surprising she didn't attack him. "I refuse to help you and Reikage-sama kill the fire daimyo. And I won't help you kill a cute little cat. If that means I'll be labeled as a traitor, then fine." As he formed a hand seal, the man in the mask said, "I'm sorry it's come to this, then." But he felt something pierce his arm before he could take any action. He looked down and saw a snake with its teeth embedded in his flesh. He muttered, "Fucka," and then abruptly fell to the ground. Anko approached the fallen man and then took a kunai out of her holster. She silently pushed her kunai into the man's throat and watched as he choked on his own blood. "Thank you, However," she said, looking into Yugito's eyes after he had died. Yugito nodded slowly. She was a fair-skinned woman with long blonde hair, black eyes, and a hint of red lipstick. "I know, I'm still technically an enemy and there are procedures you're supposed to follow. I won't resist." Kefla approached them and peered down at the ninja that had died. "Well, that's a bit disappointing. I was looking forward to a good fight." Yakumo cracked a smile and said, "You'll soon realize that not every mission requires combat expertise. Some require patience, quick thinking, espionage, etc. As for the busty Saiyan," she said, "well, that's boring." "Oh well. Hey, Anko-sensei, I love the way you work. This guy never stood a chance." After giving a nod, the snake mistress turned to face Tora. "Yugito, I'm not going to tie you up. I'm trusting you know to pull anything. However, you're returning to Konoha with us so we can deal with this situation the proper way. At the moment, we have more pressing concerns. Namely that rotten scumbag plotting the daimyo's demise. Yakumo, carry Tora. We're going to pay a visit to Naruto-kun and his target." After giving a nod, Yakumo took Tora in her arms. As the cat purred, the genjutsu expert giggled and rubbed her nose against Tora's while briefly scratching her under the chin. "You are so cute, Tora. Come on, let's return you to your mommy and daddy." Anko grinned at the sight before heading off in the direction of the palace. "I can already tell that Hokage-sama is going to be furious." Naruto. The traitor was so mad at Naruto for putting him in this predicament that he yelled, "You can't do this to me. Don't you know who I am, you rotten fleabag?" Specifically, what had the Saiyan done? The false advisor was unable to stand, crawl away, or really resist at all because he had broken the man's arms and legs. Naruto sighed and said, "Fleabag. Really, whatever. I'm sure once Daimyo-sama and his family learn what you had planned for them and their cat, that you'll wish I had killed you. You do know that you can make this easier on yourself, right? All you have to do is tell me the truth about why the lightning daimyo sent you. Why would he want the fire daimyo dead? Why send you?" The man yelled angrily, "I'm not telling you a damn thing. Nothing you do can make me talk." As she approached the group with Yugito and her team, Anko remarked, "Then it's a good thing it isn't him that will be doing the interrogating." Putting a finger to her chin, Anko smiled sadistically at him and said, "I'm sure you'll just love to find out what I can do to you. If you know anything about Konohagakure's shinobi corps, then you have likely heard of me. If you're smart, you'll talk now. If not, well sorry, but I don't got a clue who you are. Obviously you're not special enough to mean anything to me or Daimyo-sama, the man said with a simple sneer. Gripping, Anko remarked, oh, how wrong you are. The others observed as Kale approached the group with the fire daimyo and his friends in tow, while Anko tormented the man, taking pleasure in his cries as though they were music to her ears. Just what is going on here? Why are you torturing one of my advisors? I thought you were here to help Tora. Naruto turned to the daimyo and calmly explained the circumstances. My apologies, Daimyo-sama. This advisor of yours has been plotting your assassination for quite some time now. Based on what I overheard, he's been trying to kill you and your family for a few years now. Tora was protecting you in her own way. That's why he was trying to remove Tora from the picture. I know you have no reason to believe us over the word of your advisor here, but I assure you it's the truth. Madame Shijimi spoke up before her husband could say anything. No, I believe you, Naruto-kun. Thank you all for all your hard work. You've done an exceptional job. Agreed. Tell me, who was this man working for? The fire daimyo said with a puff of breath. Naruto sighed and replied, I overheard him telling his hired help that he's working for the lightning daimyo. Anko-sensei can hopefully get more information out of him, because that's all I really know. Yugito approached the fire daimyo and bowed. Sir, I have news as well. I was one of those hired by this man to help him assassinate Tora. I refused to go through with it, and I helped Tora escape the first time before my partner could kill her. I believe Tora did what she did to protect you. I'm terribly sorry for all the trouble we've caused. Before focusing on Yugito's headband, the fire daimyo gazed intently into her eyes. Akumogakure kunoichi, tell me, why would the Hokage agree to send you and your compatriot to help in the attempted murder of my family and me? Depending on your answer, I may have to take drastic action. Yugito flinched and could not meet the fire daimyo's eyes directly. The Hokage agreed to the mission Bakazuya because he wanted to make a preemptive strike against Konoha and the Land of Fire as a whole. Assassinating you would be a huge step towards conquering Konohagakure. You were pretty much the equivalent of a stepstone on his path to glory and conquest. For a while, the fire daimyo closed his eyes and thought about what he had just been told. Yugito's anxiety was growing as a result of the silence, and she could feel perspiration trickling down her neck, back of her head. The blonde woman sighed in relief when he finally said something. It would seem I need to deal with them most harshly. But first, there's the matter of the Chunin exams coming up soon in Konohagakure. Is it safe to assume he will be sending teams to Konoha for the exams? Yugito nodded and continued, that actually presents another problem, Daimyo-sama. The Hokage has entered an alliance with the village of Otogakure, or rather, Orochimaru and his goon squad. Sunagakure has also gotten involved. Kurigakure and Iwagakure haven't entered the alliance yet, but there's no telling if they will at some point. Orochimaru's plan is to invade Konohagakure during the final matches of the Chunin exams. It will be an attack on 3 fronts, and I'm not sure if Konoha can withstand the onslaught. By now Hachibe was frowning. It was obvious that he was extremely angry. I see. You will come with me to Konoha. We need to discuss the situation with Hiruzen and decide on a course of action. I'd love nothing more than to cancel or postpone the Chunin exams, but that would tip off our enemies that we know of their plan. No, we need to come up with a suitable strategy so we can fight back and rout the enemy armies. But first, is it safe to assume that you're willing to defect to Konohagakure in exchange for this information? The brunette replied, I cannot agree with the Hokage's plan, nor that of the Lightning Daimyo. I refuse to be a tool for them any longer. If Konoha will have me, then I'll gladly join Konoha's shinobi forces and fight to defend my new home. Hachibe grinned at them and said, you have done me a great service today. I'll make sure the 5 of you are paid well for what you've done. If I may ask one more favor from you, I would be most gracious. Good. Team 11, he said, noticing he had their attention. With a smile, Anko addressed the daimyo, saying, Daimyo-sama, we'll do our best to meet your needs. Good. I ask that you act as escorts for my wife and myself. We'll be journeying together back to Konohagakure, after all. Hiruzen and I have much to discuss and quite little time to prepare for the coming war. The daimyo replied with a scowl at the expression on his face. Rest assured, Konohagakure will have my full support. And once the Chunin exams are completed, I plan to lead the charge against this new alliance. Starting with that treacherous snake, Orochimaru. As for Suna, I have a feeling I know why they've joined this alliance. With Hiruzen's help, I plan to deal with that particular problem within the week. Hopefully my fellow daimyo doesn't prove to be a complete imbecile. Do you know something, Daimyo-sama? Why would Suna form an alliance with Orochimaru and the Hokage, of all people? Anko scowled at this point. Hachibe looked into Anko's eyes and replied, I do. The Wind Daimyo is outsourcing missions to Konohagakure. He's depriving his own hidden village of money, missions, etc. just to hire Konoha shinobi for whatever he needs. And I think I know who's responsible for creating this particular problem. Danzo Shimura. He's very good at making enemies where once were allies. I'm quite positive he's manipulated things somehow, for the good of Konoha. I think it's high time he pay the price for his many crimes. Anko scowled at this and replied, damn that man. Why Hokage-sama hasn't just dealt with him by now is beyond me. It's plain as day that he's evil as can be. I hate to say it, but he's worse than Orochimaru. Kami that felt weird to say. Looking at Naruto at this point, the daimyo nodded and smiled sadly at the young man. I've heard a great deal about you, Naruto Uzumaki. I know of your burden, and I know what has transpired in Konoha since your birth. You should know that Danzo likely had something to do with releasing some very important information regarding you and what you hold. Danzo views you Jinchuriki as weapons and nothing more. Not people, but combat drones that should obey his every whim. If he had his way, he would use you as a weapon of war with no regard to what might befall you. As Anko said, Danzo is pretty much the definition of pure evil. It's high time somebody did something about him. There will be no talks, no peaceful option. No, the only thing awaiting Danzo at this point is a swift death. He deserves to suffer for his crimes, but I get the feeling he's going to force our hands in some way. But enough of that, let us feast first and then we shall set off for Konoha. You, he said, looking into Yugito's eyes, you will ride with me. I wish to hear more of this plan straight from your lips. Is this understood? Yugito replied, of course, Daimyo-sama. If I can help in any way, I'd be more than happy to. Before taking the lead, Hachibe remarked, good. Now come. You've all been through enough today, so I believe a feast is in order. I'll get my cook started on something delectable that you're sure to enjoy. But he stopped and looked at the betraying advisor. Can someone dispose of this man? His mere presence sickens me. Anko nodded and was ready to set the man's body on fire when one of the guardian ninja materialized and swiftly vanished along with the bound spy. She chose to simply say, fuck it, and trailed behind the daimyo and the others, shrugging her shoulders. They appeared to be headed for war after this mission took an interesting turn. This is going to be a dreadful situation. After a few days, Konohagakure. Hachibe had yet to inform the Hokage of the threat now facing Konoha and the Land of Fire. No, he made a beeline for the council meeting rooms as soon as he arrived in the village. When he arrived, he assumed the role designated for him, should he ever return to Konoha. He waved his right hand as he sat down, and two of his guardians materialized in front of him. With nods of their heads, the two men vanished to go and gather the council. Call the council together, Hiruzen included. Do not explain the situation to any of them. Simply inform them that a meeting has been called and they need to get here as soon as humanly possible. I will not accept tardiness from any of them. After they had left, Hachibe turned to face Team 11 and gave them a kind smile. You will remain at my side. I trust you to help me deal with any threats, especially from those damned elders. Each Team 11 member said, Hi, Daimyo-sama. When the different council members eventually entered, the civilians were visibly upset that they had been called in when they were busy. Their songs abruptly changed as soon as they saw the daimyo, and they hastily sat down. Clan heads followed, then the elders, who entered next. At last, the Hokage came in. Upon taking his seat, the daimyo glanced at everyone before focusing on Hiruzen. Some things have come to my attention that you and everyone in this room need to hear. But first, allow me to extend my deepest gratitude to the members of Team 11. They have foiled an attempt on my life and the lives of my family, Tora included. On top of that, they have discovered a conspiracy against Konoha and the Land of Fire as a whole. He looked around at the different council members and said, I sincerely believe that they plan to take your life, Hiruzen Sarutobi. I also believe that they aim to kill and destroy everyone and everything they can. He said, the Hokage, the Kazekage, and Orochimaru of the Sannin have entered an alliance and are plotting against Konoha. They plan to attack during the Chunin exam finals. At this point, Hachibe looked at the elders and asked, "Have you been assisting Danzo Shimura in any way? Because I believe his actions have turned Sunagaku against us. After all, the Wind Daimyo is giving all of his business to Konoha and completely neglecting his own hidden village. I want the truth now." Both Homura and Kaharu started to perspire uneasily out of concern that they would further annoy the daimyo. I'm afraid we don't know what you're talking about, Daimyo-sama. Why ever would we assist Danzo in his acts of terrorism? Homura said, giving him an uncomfortable smile. If need be, Daimyo-sama, I can perform a mind dive and get the truth from them that way, Inoichi said, breaking the silence. Do it. I want to know everything they've done. I want all their crimes laid bare before us. Inoichi gave a nod, then used his jutsu to enter Homura's head first. A deep frown was etched on his face when he eventually returned to his own body. He turned to Kaharu and gave her the mind dive without saying a word. Inoichi eventually made his way back to his body and met the daimyo's eyes directly. They've been conspiring with Danzo for years, Daimyo-sama. I can explain everything later, in a private setting. For now, just know that they've committed numerous acts of treason in their efforts to assist Danzo. Hachibe gave a nod and briefly closed his eyes. He hummed for a moment after saying, I see. Kill them. I do not want them tainting this village any longer. Homura and Kaharu's heads dropped from their bodies and started rolling across the floor before they could say anything in protest. A moment later, their bodies fell in a heap to the ground. The daimyo glared at the other individuals in the room after his guards had rejoined him. As I was saying before this little distraction, I know why Sunagaku has gotten involved in this alliance. The Wind Daimyo has been giving all of his missions to Konohagakure for a long time now. Sunagaku is suffering because of his idiocy. I suspect Danzo played a huge part in turning the Wind Daimyo against his own people. I will talk with my fellow daimyo. Hiruzen, I expect you to get in touch with the Kazekage and try to work with him to bring peace between our nations once again. Do not fail me. The elderly Hokage gave a sympathetic nod. Of course, Daimyo-sama. I will do everything within my power to convince him to cease hostilities against Konoha. Buddha. Yes, that leaves Kumogakure and Otogakure as our enemies for this invasion. I want everyone to behave as normal for the time being. I'm certain Orochimaru has spies within the village, and I do not want them reporting back to that wretched snake that we have discovered their plan. I intend for us to turn their trap against them. And when we do, I expect you to end Orochimaru and the Raikage's lives. No questions asked, no attempts at mercy, no holding back. Kill everyone that stands against you, regardless of your personal feelings on the matter. This means, Hiruzen Sarutobi, that you are not to let Orochimaru slip away again because of your fondness for him. You may care about him as your old student, but I will not tolerate you being merciful towards him again. You let him escape last time and look at what's happened because of it. Hachibe exclaimed, looking enraged. After flinching, Hiruzen nodded his head in comprehension. Of course, Daimyo-sama. I won't let you down. I'll try to recall Jiraiya and Tsunade to the village to assist us, Buddha. The Fire Daimyo sighed and said, as of this moment, their Sannin privileges are revoked. No longer will I tolerate them giving into their vices. If they refuse to return for any reason, they are to be labeled as missing nin and hunted as such. So if I were you, I'd stress the importance of their return to the village. If Jiraiya complains about the lack of inspiration, or some such nonsense, inform him that I'll ban his books throughout the land of fire. Hell, if even that doesn't get through to him, then feel free to tell him that I'll order his balls chopped off and his ding-dong rendered useless to him. Do you understand me, Hiruzen Sarutobi? Consider it done, Daimyo-sama. What about Tsunade? The elderly Hokage said, nodding. I'll personally have her banned from every casino in the land of fire. I'll also have flyers put up in every tavern, inn, bar, whatever, that forbids her from being served any alcoholic beverages. No longer will I tolerate her wallowing in her own self-misery. From now on she works as a loyal, strong Konoha kunoichi, or she pays the price for her behavior. And if even that doesn't do the trick, I'll send my men after her with instructions to drag her kicking and screaming into my palace. She can either give in to my demands or she can suffer. It doesn't matter to me either way. Hiruzen flinched at the stern expression the Fire Daimyo had given him. I see. Thank you, Daimyo-sama. I'll ensure both of my students get the message and understand the importance of your request. This isn't a request, Hiruzen. This is an order. This is a demand. You've let all of your students get away with far too much. So I'm taking action where you have not. I have no problem ordering the execution of your students, Hiruzen. So either do as I say, or I take matters into my own hands. Is that understood? Quickly, out of fear of the fire daimyo's anger, Hiruzen nodded. You understood, Daimyo-sama. I'll get right on that. Buddha, what do we do about the attempt on your life? Has that already been resolved? Hachibe hummed in contemplation for a moment before. The Hokage and my fellow daimyo in the land of lightning are likely to realize soon enough that their attempt on my life has been foiled. Do I expect them to try again? Not anytime soon. I believe that, with the invasion they have planned and the Chunin exams being right around the corner, will keep them quite busy. Far too busy to make another attempt on my life. And they won't be given a chance afterwards to come after me because, at that point, we are taking the fight to them. We'll exterminate them like the vermin they are. I refuse to let their actions go unpunished. Not to question your authority in this matter, Daimyo-sama, but I have to ask, is that wise? If we go to war with them, who's to say that other nations won't join the war on either side? I don't have anything against dealing with a threat such as this, but the risks are many. Shibi Aburame said in the hopes of communicating with his country's head of state. Hachibe scowled at this and made the decision to give it some serious thought. After several minutes, he glanced at Shibi's and replied, You make a valid point, Shibi. However, we have to strike back, should either party escape the invasion alive. If we simply allow their actions to go unpunished, we run the risk of other countries mistaking us for weak fools that are too afraid to take action when we should. However, I do understand your point of view and your concerns on this matter. So, if we can get at least Sunagaku to see the light, so to speak, that will ensure we have one ally that we can count on. We have allies in some of the minor lands and shinobi villages, but we need more than just that. If the Uzumaki clan were still around, their assistance alone would practically ensure our victory. I'll do what I can, but I want you to think of some way to earn us more allies. Hiruzen scowled for a while before a thought struck him. I've got an idea, but it's a risky one. I'll discuss it with you in private, Daimyo-sama. For now, perhaps we should discuss our strategy for our counterattack. Then again, we barely have any information on what to expect. The daimyo turned to face the blonde woman and said, I think I have that covered. Yugito-san, if you would. After giving a nod, the black-eyed woman moved forward so that everyone could see her. I am one of the shinobi the Hokage sent to kill Tora and potentially Daimyo-sama here. As the Nibi Jinchuriki, I was meant to take part in the invasion and help destroy Konohagakure. However, my being here throws a small wrench in that plan. Still, I have some information on their plans and what they aim to do once the invasion starts. I will share with you everything that I can. Then please do so. Team 11, you are dismissed. I will have Hiruzen summon you for me if I need you later. Thank you again for your services to me and my family. Hachibe grinned gratefully. With a nod, Anko faced her genin team. Naruto and his friends laughed as they left the room, Anko following closely behind. Well, you heard the man. Let's get going already. Chop chop, they exclaimed. After they left, Yugito was the center of attention as she went into great detail about the planar what she knew of it. After a week, someone shouted from inside the Hokage's office, What the hell is going on, sensei? I don't appreciate it. An angry blonde woman came. A tall, white-haired person and a black-haired woman with a pig stood next to her. With a tremendous outburst of intent to kill, Hiruzen slammed his students, knocking them to the ground. Daimyo-sama is right, you two did need to pull your heads out of your asses and shape the hell up. The elderly man glared at his former students, revealing his intention to kill. Jiraiya, from now on you are forbidden from enjoying those damnable vices of yours. No more spying on women, no more smut novels, I will have none of it. You'll do your damn duty and you'll enjoy every second of it. Looking at his only female pupil, Hiruzen scowled and replied, As for you, Tsunade, I am highly disappointed in you and your atrocious behavior. You lost Dan and Nawaki, and I understand that pain all too well. But you need to grow the fuck up and get over it and get over yourself. One way or another, we're going to break you of that fear of blood you've developed. You're going to start training our forces in the art of medical ninjutsu. From now on, every team will have at least one medic shinobi. And don't even think about trying to fight me on this, Tsunade. Daimyo-sama has already taken care of ripping your vices away from you. If you had simply agreed to return sooner, the two of you would have been fine. Too bad you refused to listen and had to be dragged back here. Shock and horror filled the Sannin's eyes. BB Buddha, what about my inspiration? My novels. Without those see. Jiraiya cried, obviously shocked by the situation. Hiruzen looked at the Toad Sage and replied, no. More. If you are caught peeping on women in their most vulnerable moments, you will be castrated. And no, that is not a joke. No more little Jiraiya to fondle at night. No chance of passing on your genes. Nothing. You don't get to behave like that anymore. B. Buddha, how can you expect me to just get over all of that so easily? I can't do it. Thea, said Tsunade, who had been wide-eyed for a while. The elderly Hokage looked at her and said, do you really think that Dan and Naoki would have condoned such behavior from you, Tsunade? They'd be ashamed of you and what you've become. Snap out of it, get with the program, and stop being a whiny little bitch who acts like the whole world is against her. And before you ask, you have been banned from every casino in the Land of Fire. You have been blacklisted at every liquor store, every restaurant that sells liquor, every bar, pub, etc. No longer will you be allowed to destroy yourself like the fool you've been. Shape up, behave like a proper kunoichi again, and get over yourself. I expect you to be at the hospital at 9 a.m. sharp. You'll be training medics and helping out in the hospital every damn day. You'd better hope you get over your fear of blood real quickly, Tsunade, because you're going to be seeing a lot of it. Tears were starting to prickle Tsunade's eyes. She began to shake uncontrollably and eventually retreated a few steps. When it appeared that she was about to run away, Hiruzen widened his gaze and said, if you try to run away, you'll be labeled a missing nin with a kill on-site order. So don't even think about running from your duties any longer, Tsunade. I've been far too lenient with the both of you and you've taken advantage of my kindness. It's time you two shaped up and started seriously training again. You're out of shape and out of practice. I need you both to be fully prepared because we're going to be at war after the Chunin exams are over. I've got a lot to go over with you two. Please don't let me down. The mention of war caused Jiraiya and Tsunade's eyes to widen. War? What exactly happened, sensei? Tell us everything you know. Jiraiya took a moment to gather himself, and then Hiruzen started talking about the impending war, the invasion, and everything else they needed to know. He fervently hoped that these two would move past their differences, change their ways, and put forth great effort to protect the village and its residents. This war was inevitable and unavoidable, even though none of them wanted it. Even the new genins just out of the academy would need to be ready for this. Most likely, they would also be removing shinobi from the reserves. After all, there is no assurance that everyone will survive a war. They are bloody affairs. Really, all they could do was put a lot of effort into training them all, emphasize teamwork, train a few medics, and cross their fingers. And Hiruzen was aware that he would have to let Naruto loose on their adversaries and hope that he could control the beast within him if it came to that. I'm sorry, Naruto, but you're more likely to be a weapon of war than a sentient being with emotions and a mind of your own. If that occurs, I sincerely hope you will pardon me.
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.